come in, the mayor has called the meeting to order. Mayor Davey.
Here.
Councilmember Kaplan.
Here.
Councilmember Laredo. Vice Mayor London. Vice Mayor London.
Here. Thanks.
Councilmember McCormick.
Here.
Councilmember Moss.
Here.
Councilmember Segurola.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, we do have a quorum. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item, Mr. Mayor, is an invocation from Deacon Miguel Baguer.
All rise.
Let us pray. Almighty God, you have given us dominion over the planet Earth, and you have blessed us with life in this beautiful community of Biscayne. We thank you for the strong men and women that have made and continue to make this a just country. We thank you for the endless work that the rescue team and the Community Foundation continue to do in helping so many of us in the pandemic. And today, we pray heartily for those who govern. We ask you, God, to give them the spirit of wisdom, justice, and charity, so with steadfast purpose and in harmony with each other, they may faithfully serve from their offices and to promote the well-being of all people. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Deacon.
Item, Mr. Mayor's brief comments by council.
Right. We had an eventful weekend in terms of local events. It was nice to see people gathered at the Veterans Day celebration. I want to thank Todd and his staff. They do an incredible job. Thank you to the Honor Guard. Thank you to everybody who makes it happen. You know, that's one of those events that that really speaks to the community we have here. And I want to thank everybody who attended. Secondly, we had the Lighthouse Run, and I was just informed that our illustrious Mayor Kaplan came in third in his age group. Congratulations.
There are three people in my age group.
Ed's still running. He got lost. And then next week is Thanksgiving. And so, you know, I want to give thanks for everybody up here doing everything you do. Thanks to our staff. Thanks to our public safety folks, our recreation. I know it's been a tough 18 months, but you've all really been pushing through. So thank you for everything you're doing. I'm very thankful for all of you. Maybe not Ed London, but everybody else. And finally, that's all my public comments for right now. Anybody else brief comments?
As long as we're on the subject of Veterans Day, Mayor Davey and I went to a beautiful ceremony that evening at the Yacht Club.
Right, that's right.
For the flag lowering, and I much appreciated the opportunity to participate in their commemoration, and it was really quite lovely.
Councilmember Laredo? I'm sorry. Hi.
No comment. Thank
okay.
You.
All righty. So now we'll have brief,
Public comments.
Public comments. I have two people signed up. Pete, if you could just read the instructions quickly now, or not quickly, if you could just read them now and give folks time to try and dial in.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you watching us on channel 77, channel 99, or streaming us live on our website. If you wish to make a public comment, please dial the following phone number of 305-365-7569. And please enter the meeting ID of 231-627-8415.
Okay. Our first speaker, Florencia Manero. Just please state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Florencia Manero, 676 Fernwood Road. I am the director of the field hockey program, and I've been doing this for the last 12 years on a volunteer basis. And I wanted to come and request that when the Village Athletic Advisory Board presents the solution or kind of solution for the lack of space, some things are considered. I don't think that the solution is to cap the kids that come off the key if we stick to the 80-20% rule that we've been abiding by. The fact that there is, and I want to make 2 disclosures. I am not against any sport whatsoever. I want every kid to do a sport. And we run this on a non-profit basis, and we don't want our program to keep on growing. We just want to keep the quality of the program. We have 3 girls playing in Division 1 under full ride scholarships, 2 boys on a national team, and another player going to the World Cup representing the girls. So I'm just doing this to keep on transmitting the passion for the sport and a lifestyle for all of these girls and boys. So I don't think that limiting the amount of kids, if we stick to the 80-20 to all other sports, it's going to solve the problem, given the fact that only one sport has 188 kids out, or non-residents, and of those 188, 106 participate on a recreational program. It's taking time from other girls that are Key Biscayne residents and want to practice 3 times a week, the lack of available space, and also that you consider that 85% of the time, in all of the seasons, the fields are used by the same sport. And I think that our taxpayers also need a choice to practice other sports and at prime time. So my request is that you consider that the problem won't be solved by limiting the amount of kids that play under age 10. I think that the main purpose when you were with me at the board, at the Athletic Advisory Board, was to offer kids in Key Biscayne the chance to practice different sports, learn different disciplines, and we have one sport that it's being run like a professional soccer club, and that's not the intent of our village. And I have nothing against soccer. I have nothing against kids playing soccer, but if 188 kids play soccer which are not residents of this island and 106 of them are non-residents, we should give a thought to that. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hernan Lopez Varela.
Good evening. I'm Hernan Lopez Varela, 452 Hampton Lane. Similar to hockey, we're not on an agreement on the cap. I represent rugby. Kirats has been in the island for over 12 years. It's a non-for-profit organization. Most of the money that we raise, we give it back in different types of charities. All of us are volunteers. We charge $200 a year. It's the cheapest sport in the island. I think limiting the number of non-resident kids for under 10 is not the right thing to do. Rugby is not a very popular sport outside a few places in Florida. If we are capping those kids outside the island not to play, you're not leaving them away from Key Biscayne. You're literally terminating rugby for them. I just want to explain one thing about our sport. We use one field, which is San Agnes. And unfortunately, this year, San Agnes expanded and we lost 1/3 of the field. So our under 16, under 19 kids need to leave the island and play somewhere else. So that's another issue that we want to address at some point. But I'm here today just to explain how things work in rugby. We use the same field even if we have 50 kids or 300. We don't need more space. With the space that we have, we can accommodate everybody. And as you guys know better than me, a lot of people have been priced out of Key Biscayne and having members of our clubs, and we don't want them to go away because they cannot afford living in the island anymore. So we want to keep the program open for every kid if we don't require more space. That's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Pete, do we have anybody signed up? Oh, come on up. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Step up, please.
Ignacio Goris from 560 Warren Lane.
You can take it.
560 Warren Lane. And I think after I signed up, I realized that there was this topic was discussed on the council recently. It's about the artificial turf on the code. I think that code hasn't been there for such a long time. I think it was implemented in 2013. That there was a section added to, and it's very specific about artificial turf. Not really sure why. I asked all the code enforcers, and they didn't know. So, well, just go talk to the council members, because that's not something, we just enforce it. We don't know why or how, and well, we know when. It started in 2013, and because it mentions that you cannot use artificial turf on the front lawn. It doesn't mention anything else. I guess you could just make a big wood deck on the front lawn, and there's nothing against other things. You can brick it, you can do all sorts of things, but it's very specific about it's prohibited to do artificial turf. So I think that's something that should be revised, especially after that 2013 amendment went in 2016 to 2017, and we added turf to the whole village green. I mean, we added it because it was based on there's a lot of activity, it was something necessary. Otherwise, the maintenance on those fields was terrible. So, something similar would happen at my home with having 3 boys trying to play on our regular turf, and our regular grass, and it just gets destroyed, and the house gets destroyed. So, wanted to have a section change for that, and it's I realized that it's not approved. So I would want that to be reconsidered. I know it was recently talked about, but I don't understand exactly what the rhyme or reason is for prohibiting one thing that's very specific and not anything else. So thank you for listening to me, and hopefully that something could be done about that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Does anybody else want to speak? Okay, I'm going to close public comments.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is the agenda. Approval, deferrals, additions, deletions, substitutions, and withdrawals.
Okay, does anybody have any items they want to add or delete? Okay.
Move it.
I do.
Yeah, okay, I was going to say, I figured. Councilmember Laredo?
I think I wanted to pull for further discussion the minutes of September 8th, September 21st, and October 12th. I had submitted, Mayor, from last Wednesday, comments and additions for correction, and I hope that they'll be included in your package. And I learned late today that was not. So, those 2 of those meetings, of course, are the 2 most important meetings of the year, which is the budget meeting.
Okay, so you want to pull those, that's it? Just pull those 3? Any additions or deletions?
Yeah, and then we can discuss later, yeah.
Okay.
But you want to pull them from consent, but you want to discuss them tonight?
Yes.
Why not just defer them, have her do the corrections and bring them back?
Councilman Kaplan, unfortunately, I took the time to write my comments in writing, as I said last Wednesday night. I don't have the notes with me since I'm traveling, and so I will, if you want, I will do that, or if not, we can.
I think it's best.
No.
Why don't we do?
Minutes ahead of time, so we will have a short meeting today. But
Right. Well, why don't we do this, Councilmember Respect? I think the idea is, why don't we push them to the next meeting, the approval, so that way,
okay.
At that point, they may have been included, the comments may be included, and then we can move them that way. Is that fine?
Okay.
So why don't we defer them and not pull them and defer them? Okay.
I delivered them on Wednesday.
Yeah, I understand. You don't have to explain. That's fine. No, it is what it is. Don't sweat that.
Okay, move as amended.
Okay. All those in favor?
Can we also, hold on one second, Mayor?
I'm sorry.
I would like to add just a discussion on the Charter Revision Commission to the agenda.
Okay.
I just want to be able to brief you guys, because at your next meeting, you're going to have to appoint.
Right. So we'll put that under village attorney?
Or if you want, you can just add it underneath the managers. When we talk about the audit committee, I could talk about the charter revision.
All right, fine, let's do that. That's better. And what number is that then?
That's
That would be 6C. 12A, 6C. We're going to add Charter Revision Committee.
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay.
Motion carries. The next item, Mr. Mayor, is a special presentation of a proclamation. Mrs. Darlene Presley Durant, Key Biscayne K-8 Center.
Get the proclamation. You want to read it?
I got to read it last time.
Let you read it to So, Ms. Durant, we are, for those of you who aren't aware of Ms. Durant, she's been a long-time teacher at the K-8. She's an incredible asset to this community. We are going to miss her incredibly. So we, on the event of her leaving us, retirement, well-deserved, certainly, we wanted to offer this proclamation. So, Councilmember McCormick, if you would read it.
I am honored to read this, as I am honored to say I had a child in her class, and my whole family is better for having had him in her class for second grade. Proclamation from the Office of the Mayor. Whereas the Village of Key Biscayne is justly proud to honor Mrs. Darlene Presley Durant, who is retiring as teacher at the Key Biscayne Community School KBK Center after 36 years of exemplary service. And whereas the children that entered her classroom each year were transformed by her guiding hand, tireless patience, and nurturing love into a precious collection of Presley's pearls or Durant's diamonds. And whereas Mrs. Presley Durant dedicated herself to opening her students' minds to the magic of ideas, knowledge, and dreams, and whereas Mrs. Presley Durant played many roles during her exemplary career, listener, explorer, role model, motivator, and mentor. And whereas Mrs. Presley Durant's dedication to her students reached far beyond her classroom door, as she regularly attended her students' birthday parties, sporting events, recitals, and family dinners. And whereas the merit of any community is measured by the action of those individuals who, by way of unparalleled exhibitions of dedication, conviction, and selfless service to others, inspire those fortunate to bear witness. Now, therefore, be it resolved as for him, the duly elected mayor of the Village of Key Biscayne, he congratulates Mrs. Darlene Presley Durant on the occasion of her retirement from the Key Biscayne Community School and Miami-Dade County Public Schools. The village is grateful for her years of incredible service to our community and wish her all the best in her future endeavors. You want to read the last bit, since it's really specific to you?
In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand an official seal of the Village of Key Biscayne this 16th day of November 2021. Let's get a photo down here with Mr. Durant.
Thank you for not noticing if there's a typographical error. Oh, Lord. It's a minor thing. It's just,
I missed it. It was a comma, right?
no, you want to see it?
No, no, sit down, we got other things to do, come on. Make fun of me later over drinks.
Now, that's a plan.
Oh, that's right.
So frank.
You know,
Tomorrow? I thought it was
the
2
productivity in my office just dramatically dropped because all the parents had to do the science project. I'm like, wait, what's wrong with this picture?
We just
midnight last
oversee.
night doing that.
Yeah, oversee, design, creation, and implementation.
Yelling, screaming, crying.
Mostly it's yelling and screaming and crying.
The next item, Mr. Mayor, is a presentation of a special certificate honoring a Key Biscayne adoptive family and presentation of a proclamation recognizing national adoption.
So I have a certificate, but I also have I have two proclamations here. And I wanted to thank, I don't know if Rosa's here?
I saw it.
So, is Rosa Kemper here? Oh, there she is. She's sitting in the back. So we were approached about recognizing foster and adoptive families, whereas, then let me just read the proclamation. Whereas during National Adoption Awareness Month, the Village of Key Biscayne recognizes the immeasurable love and support that adoptive parents and families provide to hundreds of thousands of children each year. And whereas the village celebrates the life-changing act of adoption and expresses our gratitude to the families who have welcomed children into their lives and homes. And whereas, as a community, we must all encourage and recognize that children in local foster care programs need and deserve a permanent home to secure a more promising future with a forever family. And whereas adoptive parents and families who have adopted children require and deserve community respect and support. And whereas the merit of any community is measured by the actions of those individuals who, by way of unparalleled exhibitions of dedication, conviction, and selfless service to others, inspire those fortunate to bear witness. Now, therefore, be it resolved, as the duly elected mayor of the Village of Key Biscayne, I do hereby proclaim the month of November 2021 as National Adoption Awareness Month, a month of celebration and reflection, in witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and official seal of the Village of Key Biscayne, the 16th day of November 2021.
Yeah, here, just in.
And
It's a very heavy.
so, and in light of Rosa and Gigi, are we allowed to, am I allowed to call her Gigi still? Okay, yeah. But certificate of special recognition to Rosa Kemper. The Village of Key Biscayne salutes you for becoming an adoptive family. Can you mute them, Pete? Pete, can you mute them, please, for a second? Salutes you for becoming an adoptive family, giving youth in the community safe haven, a forever family, security, and endless love. You have freely opened your heart and home and taught youth tools to help our city have another upright, happy, and good citizen among us. So thank you, Rosa. Hey, Rosa. Come on up. Have a picture.
I like these. These are happy.
That's going to be Kathleen Chavez. Is this Chavez?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, okay. This for my.
But then they're incredibly close to each other. Skip that.
How are you? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
There's the proclamation. This is for you all.
Thank you.
Yeah, can we get pictures? Can we get photos?
The next item, Mr. Mayor, is athletics field utilization and allocation discussion by Glenn Waldman, Chair, Village Athletics Advisory Board.
Good evening, Glenn Waldman, 240 Woodcrest Road. It's awful hard to follow those two, isn't it?
I was going to say last but not least, but really in this case, it's, sorry.
And by the way, my two kids were Durant Diamonds.
Right.
They both had her, and she's amazing. So really good stuff. All right, so we're going to talk about athletics a little bit. I know you had field hockey up here before, as well as rugby, to tell you their views. So when I was before you on October 26th, I laid out for you two things that we thought would be a beginning approach to try to deal with the issues and the challenges we had was field space and the sports running over each other. And the two things that we talked about was one, 10 and under, no kids off of Key Biscayne, and two, we were going to put a freeze on the current levels for the certain sports which are at a max, like rugby, specifically rugby, field hockey, and soccer. And those were the two things. And I committed to you that we would go back, have an opportunity for all the sports to come talk to us, have a special meeting to discuss it, and then come back to you. And that's exactly what happened. On November 10th, we had a meeting. It was attended by field hockey, flag football, rugby, and soccer. And they expressed their views to us and shared what their thoughts were. We listened, and we made a few tweaks. And I'm here to share with you where we are that we'd like you to approve if you agree. And essentially what we did is we made two tweaks to what we talked about. First, with respect to U10 and under, that's going to remain. And I know field hockey expressed some concern, but we did discuss it with them during the meeting, and they seemed to be okay as long as we could give them more time next year and better slots for their younger kids, which we're going to make happen. The impact, just so we know, is about 120 kids is what it's going to be in terms of off-island kids who will not be playing in our sports. And in discussing it, I think what we've come to the conclusion is, and I know Vice Mayor London, you had some concerns about why we just get rid of all of them, that we think that
Same concerns.
I understand. I remember. That by doing it this way and starting this way, again, if we don't have children growing up in our programs, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, when they get to 11, they're going to already be committed in a different program, and the likelihood is we will not be getting those children. And this is just a start. We're trying to deal with an issue. We don't think this is perfect. We don't know what's perfect. We're trying to do as best we can. So we think this makes the most sense after listening. So what we are recommending is sticking with the U10 and under only Key Biscayne children, with one exception. And the one exception is for children of parents who work on the island. And we talked about it, and it was raised by flag football, and I think it was a concern that was viable, made sense. We don't want those kids running around while mom and dad are working out here. And we're not talking about an impact probably of more than 5 to 10 children. So we think that would be, again, properly vetted, properly credentialed through the athletic department, through Todd, that they are, in fact, the parents do, in fact, work out here, and their kids are in our programs. We would make an exception for those, and that seemed to make some sense. The only other change that we are recommending is with respect to rugby, which is really our only sport that is a throwback to the old days where everybody was a volunteer, everybody did it for the fun of it, not that people don't, and we have incredibly dedicated people who run all our sports, but they're paid sports and we have paid coaches, and that's just kind of the way things have evolved, for better or worse. I think more for worse than better, but I'm not in any way degrading the people who give all their time. So they really are what it used to be, and what we learned in the meeting was that all their coaches everybody's a volunteer, and they have a number of coaches who come from off the island. So in order to give them a little bit, because really they are, and they give to charities, and they do some really good things, as do other sports, we are recommending that they are allowed to have 5 volunteer coaches at 10 and under, and the extent that are from off island, and they can bring their kids. So 5 of their volunteer coaches will be allowed to continue at the 10 below who are not island people. And so we're probably talking about another 5 to 8 children from those coaches. So those are the two tweaks that we made after listening really hard to all of the sports and talking it through. And that's what we'd like you to go ahead and pass if you agree. I can talk about whatever you want to talk about if you have questions. We did look at the numbers. I think Councilmember Laredo had some issues about, and I think maybe it was you, about if we go higher to 12 and what the impacts would be if we went higher. And we're talking about another 40 kids is really what we're talking about. We're at 120, U10 and below. If we go to 12, it's another 40 children. And as I said last time, I don't want to tinker with those levels just yet because I want to see how this impacts everything. And I also want to make sure that we have enough kids to field teams. As it gets older, it gets more challenging. So that said, if anybody has any questions, and the only other thing I'm prepared to address if you want is there was some discussion about the disparity in participation of boys and girls and how we've been able to do in that regard. And Todd was kind enough to furnish me some statistics. And if you take into account not only the quote-unquote sports, but aquatics and dance and gymnastics and everything like that, at this point we have 44% of our participants are girls and 56% are boys. So we've come up considerably from where we were in 2015. We've got about a 59% increase. So we're doing better. You know, we're clearly doing better than we did. We're still not 50-50, but heck, we're doing a lot better. And again, so if you take all the sports,
Sorry, Glenn, is that just field sports or is that all sports, including basketball, volleyball, everything? Okay.
If you just take the quote-unquote sports and leave out swimming and dance and triathlon training and cheer and dance, we're at 33% girls, 66% boys. But if you add in the other things, which are things that the athletic department runs out here, then you get 44, 56, and you know we all know how to play with the numbers. So I'm not trying to massage numbers for anybody, but those are statistically where we are. We're doing better, and even at 33% participation of girls, it's infinitely better than what it was 5 years ago.
Okay.
So
is softball dormant now?
No, softball's not dormant. I think we have 2 teams. It's not as robust as it was at one point. And baseball is really one of the sports that has suffered the most. We have 112 kids playing baseball this year.
Yeah.
That's it.
I'm at a council meeting, I can't talk.
And it used to be a heck of a lot more than that. Anybody?
Well, I guess my question is, what are our next steps, Chad? What will we have to do? We have to. Oh, I'm sorry. Just one minute, Mr. Councilmember Laredo. Chad? What is the next step we would have to take as a council on this?
As far as the programming,
yeah, I mean, because right now he's coming up with some recommendations.
I guess we need to give direction to the manager and the administration to implement them.
Okay. Okay. Councilmember Laredo and then Councilmember London. Councilmember Laredo, recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. No, I want to first thank you for your great service, the chairman of the committee.
Thank you.
And I want to ask 2 questions. I'm confused. The previous presentation on the field hockey, she used the number 80-20. I think last we were here it was 70-30. And also a quick question. I don't understand why we would be pushing for under 10 in rugby, which is a rather rough sport. It doesn't. There may be an answer. And but the key, the people who at least reach out to me is still the underlying issue is to maximize residents and taxpayers.
Correct. All right. Yeah. So if I may address your first question, there is no 80-20 rule, and I think what Florencia was suggesting that if we went to an 80-20 rule, then she would still be able to have her under 10 children participate in the program. But we didn't see any reason why to give an exception to field hockey at all. They're not treated any different than anybody else, and really we're impacting with field hockey a total of 15 children. So there is no 80-20. It's a 70-30 rule, which we put into effect long ago in order to make sure that it's primarily Key Biscayne kids, but as we get to the older levels, again, kids start to do other things in order to field our sports. So there is no 80-20, Councilman Laredo. I think that's what Florencia wanted us to consider. And as to rugby, whether under 10 should play or not, I will leave it to the rugby guys. I think it's pretty safe as I understand it, and it's really more of a community activity. I don't know what safeguards they have, and perhaps I should, but I haven't heard about any problems with those kids playing.
Okay. Councilmember London, I'm sorry, Vice Mayor London, and then Councilmember Kaplan.
I actually agree with you, Glenn. Well, that is that volunteers, coaches, their kids should be considered as well as Key Biscayne residents.
Okay, good.
But I don't believe we should consider 70-30, 80-20, 90-10, 95-5 until every Key Biscayne resident has a chance to participate. We basically are supporting these teams. We spend a portion for the fields. This is an activity. Yes, we might not be able to groom some pro players, but I don't think that's really the purpose of these programs. The purpose of the program is to give kids a chance to play, kids a chance to learn, kids a chance to have a good time, kids' chance to get off the street. And to me, number one is every Key Biscayne resident kid should be able to participate before we take anybody off island. But before we take people off island, we believe the next group should be the volunteer coaches' kids, and then full-time employees who are working out here and those kids. After that's all done, I don't care if you have 2,000 kids off the island, as long as our kids are taken care of. So to me, that's number one. It shouldn't be 80-20 or 90-3. It should be 100% Key Biscayne. Then if it works out to 70-20, 80-30, I don't really care. But the most important thing is we take care of our kids first. That's what we're here for.
And if I may address that, the way that we have now going forward, that we're stacking registrations, Key Biscayne children get to register before anybody else. Now, if people don't take advantage of the opportunity and wait, which unfortunately is sometimes the case, you know, we can't wait forever.
I understand.
But the way we have set it up now, all sports, Key Biscayne kids get first crack at every sport. And if they register, they're playing. They're not getting turned away. So we are not turning away Key Biscayne kids unless the parent waits forever, and then it's, you know, then they're kind of on an even playing field with everybody else. So I agree with you. This, to me, it's only about Key Biscayne.
So
but
the
I'm
question
trying to
then
balance
is,
it. I'm sorry.
Good. Thank you. So
Yes.
the question then is, what is the delay between a Key Biscayne registration and a non-Key Biscayne registration?
It varies sport by sport, and we have the flexibility to make it anything you want it to be. And right now, it's a couple days is all.
Couple days. So in other words, if we made it a month, I'd be happy.
We can
That
compromise.
would give our
perhaps.
Key Biscayne people, we'd advertise, we'd tell everybody, you got 1 month. If you don't do it within this month, then other kids off the island are going to come, and your kids aren't going to be able to play.
Yeah, I mean, all that's going to do is, what's going to happen is then we're going to move up the registration for the Key Biscayne kids. Yeah, I don't have a problem. If we want to do that, I think
Then
it's
we don't need a
logistics for.
70-30 and 80-20 or anything other kind of rule.
We still do, because again, I still don't want to have. I don't want to have 50% of a team off island kids. I'm not interested in that.
Right.
I
You
don't
don't
want
have
to
enough people
have
in Key
that.
Biscayne, what are you going to do?
Not field the team.
If you don't have enough people in Key Biscayne, either have fewer teams or basically, bring the kids off the island, that's all.
If we don't have enough children for a team, they're allowed to come to us for an exception, but otherwise our kids can play elsewhere if they want to play. But we're trying to take care of our kids and give them opportunities, and 70-30 has
I'm all
worked.
with you.
But I don't think a month in advance is overly practical, only because first off, nobody's going to register a month in advance. It's just,
I'm sorry to hear you.
very few people will register a month in advance. It's not the nature of human beings to do it a month in advance. A couple weeks, again, we'll do whatever you tell us to do.
14
I think
days?
a couple weeks would be more than sufficient, frankly.
We can try a month and then nobody can complain.
We're happy, we're certainly open to doing whatever you suggest, and again, we are all about our kids first, and we always have been, and we're
my
trying to take
question
care of them.
on that would be, Todd's sitting in the back, and I'm just wondering,
Yeah,
are we
I
giving
kinda
him
looked back.
additional
Can we do that?
agita in his time of agita?
What's the downside to a month over 2 weeks, Todd? I guess is the question.
More work.
I mean, usually we're formulating everything at about that time. So I think 2 weeks, if we could try that at first, would be most effective. And as long as we're pushing it out there and marketing it, I think that'll work. But if we find out that it doesn't, then we go to 3 weeks. And if we find out we need that at the end, go to a month, I think we can do that. But usually, I mean, we're working with the different sports and determining about a month or two out, 6 weeks out, exactly when they're going to start their season, when they're going to start their registration. So
you're saying because you're not organized ahead of time, that we shouldn't do it?
We're not making those determinations. We have partners.
Right, the sports.
My point being is, any reason not to do a month?
Well, if we make that a mandate to the sports, then they got to give us their fees a month in advance. And
that's all. So there's any reason not to do it. And then no Key Biscayne kid who wants to play has plenty of opportunity. We keep telling everybody this is the time. Keep doing it on everything we do to notify people. And then if they don't, they have no comeback.
Okay. Yeah, we'll work on making it a month.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Kaplan? Councilmember Kaplan's recognized.
It seems to me, your point about marketing, pushing out the need to register on time is maybe more effective than the lag time. And if there's a practical problem with that kind of, anticipatory need to commit, too far in advance, people won't do that either.
No, my experience, and I've been doing this for 20 years now, and I've run a lot of the sports as opposed to being where I am now. It's a mad dash at the end, unfortunately. That's just the way it is, and it's a mad dash after the end because I forgot. And can you hook me up? Because I'm sorry.
We gave you a month's notice, baby.
I mean, I think that's right.
The bottom line is we can adjust to whatever you guys decide, and if it's 2 weeks or it's 4 weeks. And look, we're trying to do a better job of accountability with budgets and things like that, and we have dates now for every sport when they have to have these things in us before their season, so we'll have to adjust it. But the answer is we can do it. I don't think a month is necessary. I understand the optics of it, and I understand what you're trying to do. I mean, I'm fine with 2, but if it's 4 and that's what you tell us, that's what we'll do. We'll do whatever this council tells us to do. It's that simple.
Thank you so much for the great job you do.
Thank you.
Do you feel like you could do a more active job in marketing the importance of signing up?
Well, actually, that's a village role, not our role. We really only oversee. We don't market, but we can always do a better job than we've done. I mean, we're doing our sports. Most of our sports are kind of bursting at the seams anyway. Yeah. So I don't think we're really in a situation, except for our underserved sports are baseball and flag football. Everything else is pretty much at max or close to max. Rugby says they have some room, and they do, but we're really healthy everywhere else but those 2 sports.
All right. Councilmember McCormick?
The one question I really wanted to get at is responding to the field hockey presentation. And the notion of 80-20, like across the board, I've heard you say that's first of all, that's unrooted from reality. But would it be possible, did your consideration include, when you were speaking with field hockey specifically, for example, that maybe in a targeted way, sport by sport, a ratio like that could work and not damage the program?
I mean, the 70-30 ratio is currently working. Okay, and again, we have to address the situation where we don't have enough field space and we have sports running over each other, and the inherent conflict is field hockey and soccer, and that's just the way it's been for a couple years for whatever reason. I'm not going to get into it. That's just the way it is. We are trying to take care of our kids first, and 80-20 does not take care of our kids first. That is why we've suggested it be a 0 below 10 and below. And above that, 80-20, 70-30, we're talking about a difference of 2 or 3 children. I like 70-30. 80-20 is even more restrictive, frankly.
Do you think, she's not here now, but...
we're not going to be bringing people up to discuss. We're having a presentation.
Do you know whether her drive is to be competitive? I assume it's not to field teams because they're so popular. Is it to be as competitive as possible?
Yes. Yeah, they travel and they play tournaments overseas and different parts in this country, and they do spectacularly well. All right? It's a program we're incredibly proud of. She's amazing at what she's done. And again, and she's not here, and I'm not... We had the conversation at the meeting, and we left the meeting with Florencia saying to us, as long as I can have my little kids with a different slot, I'm generally okay with the concept, because the problem is now that the little kids are playing at 7 o'clock, and she needs them to play at 6 o'clock. Right. So we committed that when we do our next field allocation for next season, we will have 6 o'clock slots, which will allow her to attract more Key Biscayne kids for the younger program. Hence, there won't be a problem, and we'll be able to fill what we're losing by the off-island kids. Yeah. And that was the compromise we discussed with her. She seemed to be on board with it when we were together a week ago. So that's why I felt comfortable with it.
Okay. Councilmember McCormick?
Thank you.
Sure.
As always.
Pleasure.
So thinking and reflecting on baseball and softball, flag football, my memory certainly of softball was that a few years back it was capped at 2 teams because of a field space issue. That rugby's at St. Agnes, there was less space than there was. Baseball had more time. And I imagine, once you get to the point where you have a cap like that, you're going to then start losing interest, unfortunately, because I can remember girls who couldn't play when we capped it 2. Do you see an opportunity if we, we're all working, trying to get more fields? Do you see that as a sport that could be revived? I mean, I think of it as like a great opportunity for girls to have softball available to them, and I would love to see that grow more. Does it seem like there's an appetite out there, or have we totally lost that after we capped it?
I'm not sure we've lost it, and I'm not sure it's capped at this point. I think it's more a lack of appetite. By the way, my daughter played. I coached the travel team for 11 and 12 years old. Oh, my gosh. What a joy that was. Ooh, that was fun. Historically over the last decade, we've really been 2 teams or 3 teams, and really that's all we've been. And I don't think it's because of space. I just think that baseball and softball are just not as popular here as other sports, and they just haven't been for a long time. I mean, soccer absolutely invades, certainly on that, and some of the others do. But, we have field hockey now, which a lot of girls never played before, which now girls play. We have volleyball, which girls play, which girls never played before. So I think the girls are and we have more girls playing soccer than we ever did before. So I don't think, I think if we had more fields, we would have all kinds of things a little differently, but I don't think it's a direct impact on softball. That's my best answer.
Thank you.
Councilmember Moss?
It's a quick question.
Sure.
You said that over the last 5 years, there's been a dramatic increase in girl participation. What was it around maybe 5 years ago? Just get an idea. Doesn't have to be exact.
Let's see. 2015, we had 229 girls playing the soccer, field hockey, rugby, baseball, basketball, volleyball. We now have 636. So let's talk dramatic. Okay, it's twofold, threefold. Yeah. Big difference.
Yeah, I think the programs that are available to them. I think we've got good field hockey. When did field hockey start? 9, 10 years ago?
11, 12 years ago.
The soccer program, the volleyball, the basketball, those programs have really stepped up and really brought the girls out, which is great. I mean, the more we can do, the better.
Yeah, we're really proud of our programs. I mean, basketball, we have we got 87 girls playing, and we had back in the day, geez, we had 40 girls or 30 girls or 20 girls. So we're doing a better job. Not we, it's the actual people running the programs are doing a great job in that regard.
Thank you.
Sure. Anybody else?
All right. Councilmember Laredo?
Mayor?
Go ahead.
Yes, I want to, again, to move on, thank Glenn for the great work you're doing. And I am 100% behind the principle that Edmund articulates. I will not get into micromanaging if you feel comfortable with 2 weeks, I would like to move that we accept these recommendations and the addition of a 2 weeks in between. It's driven also, by the way, Mayor, by a philosophy that people also have to take responsibility. You heard me about this before, including when we passed the great work that Moss did last time. We had a lot of public hearings. I know there's a gentleman who spoke earlier about the artificial. People have to take responsibility to stay engaged. And therefore, they need to proactively look at the schedule of things that are important in their lives and their kids' lives. Therefore, I think 2 weeks is a good compromise. I think the professionals have told us they can do it. And let's don't force them to something that is not reasonable. So I would move Glenn's recommendation or the committees and the addendum of a 2-week preferential and the philosophical statement that no Key Biscayne kid should be left out if they do the registration within the rules. Amen. We got rules, we got to play by the rules, which is one of the things we teach in sports. You play by the rules.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's my motion.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Vice Mayor?
Basically, Luis, you're forgetting another thing. Most of these registrations happen during the summertime or close to the summertime. A lot of people are on vacation. A lot of people come back and it's too late. So as a result, 4 weeks gives them much more of a window. And you say be engaged. Well, you know what? They're engaged in a lot of things. And a lot of times they're not thinking when is registration for a particular sport, especially if they're away or if they're out of the country or if the kids are in camp. So I don't see any objection why you can't do 4 weeks. Todd said that we can do 4 weeks. Glenn said he can accept 4 weeks. Why can't you accept 4 weeks?
Well, it's not. I mean, he proposed it
No,
to.
actually, they did not say they could accept 4 weeks. They said they would obey by the will of the council. That was a very polite and professional way of answering. And I think that we do have a little bit of we share most of principles. I don't care if it's summertime. I am just, people need to take responsibility, and these are the rules. And, you know, you stay engaged. It's your kid's life. You know, look at the people, the parents that are involved, and I think it's a good compromise between management desire and your philosophy, which I share 100%.
Well, neither you or I have kids that are going to be playing in these games. So therefore, we're really looking to help those who do have kids. So what you and I might do or might not do might not be representative of the whole village. So again, why not give people a break? It doesn't cost a damn thing. If it works, great, but they can't complain if they have 4 weeks.
Yeah, and I'm going to back the vice mayor on this, just because I think I understand your point about the 2 weeks, and people do need to take responsibility and make sure, but giving them the extra time doesn't preclude them from registering at the 2-week mark, but it gives them 2 additional weeks prior to that to register. So I would support. But Councilmember Moss and then Councilmember McCormick.
No, I just want to say I agree with Councilmember London on this one. You know, if it becomes too much of a burden, you guys can always come to us, tell us, look, it's not working, right? I mean, so again, we could start with the 4 weeks. If you come back and say, hey, 4 weeks was difficult, but we think we can do it in 3 weeks, great. We can always make that adjustment. But I would support the 4 weeks because it gives the opportunity more to the children.
Okay. Councilmember McCormick.
I feel kind of torn on this one between Councilmembers Laredo and the vice mayor, because I agree with Councilmember Laredo that it is absolutely people's responsibility to be able to play within the rules and to not be looking for everything to be so tailored and I don't know, I'm not going to come up with the right word, but I will say that if we're still doing the registrations in person at the community center, giving people more time is really kind, and beyond just saying, you know, you should comply because these are the rules. I had more than one occasion of running into the community center practically in my PJs at, you know, almost 10 o'clock at night because it was the last day to register for volleyball. And it's hard sometimes to get there. So, you know, and this will be my plug again for online registration for sports at I know soccer does it, but for everything at the community center, I think that's where we should be. But until we are, I will go with the 4 weeks.
Okay. Anybody else, or we got to call
the amendment, Luis? 4 weeks instead of 2 weeks.
But here, bottom line.
Hold on. There's a friendly. Wait, hold on, Councilmember Laredo. Did you hear the vice mayor? Or do you want to call it? Do you want to have the vote?
It's not that.
Okay, I just want to make sure you heard him.
4 weeks. I made my point. I think that in every issue here, whether it's zoning, people simply have to be engaged. They have to have gone through. Moss had like 4 different open meetings, and then people show up and say, "Oh, I didn't attend." Well, you know.
No, I just want to make sure you'd heard his proffer.
If I want a consensus, I want to make it easy for all these volunteer parents and coaches, and I thought this was a compromise that would break both, and I think we're cramming their style. They will play by our decision, but it was clear to me by the body language that they prefer 2 weeks. I guess I'm outvoted anyway.
Councilmember Kaplan?
Yeah, I saw that same body language and also verbal language, which brings to my mind, I guess, the bottom line question, which is if somebody said, it was either Todd or you, Glenn, that people don't take advantage of long lead time and it's a scramble at the end. And it seems conceivable to me that if we set up a lag time proposition to favor Key Biscayners who don't respond to it, it could actually compound the problem and result in a disproportionate amount of non-islanders who sign up because the slots are available.
I'm not sure it's disproportionate if we just extend it out. I do think that I'm hearing what you're saying, and I think that we need to focus on the marketing aspect of it. And that's something we'll discuss in the next couple of meetings. And again, I mean, frankly, I do like 2 weeks better than 4 weeks, but we're fine with 4 weeks.
Could we
honestly.
go to 3
we'll be fine.
weeks? Would that
Doesn't
be any different?
No, I mean, they're all fine.
Okay.
I mean, we just have to change the dates and that's all.
Okay,
I think workable. I just don't think you need as much, but I think optically, it makes it a lot easier to say, gee, you had a month and you didn't do it, folks.
Right.
Come on.
All right, we have a motion on the table for the 2 weeks.
2 weeks. All those in favor? Opposed?
Opposed.
Motion fails.
Okay, make the motion for 4 weeks.
Ed?
Seconds.
Okay.
I'll second
And
that
let-
motion.
Mayor Davey?
The vice mayor made the motion, even though it was incorrect.
And a second.
All right, 4 weeks.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Do we need to ratify the rest of the?
I would like you to, when you do it, whether,
Okay,
I don't know, you
let's,
proceed, but that's what we need.
I would move,
Motion.
yeah, that's what I thought. That's what his motion was, so that it was the same thing, just 4 weeks instead of 2 weeks.
So
Councilmember Laredo made the motion to approve all of it, but he wanted 2 weeks instead of 4 weeks. We went with the 4 weeks, but my understanding was we were approving everything.
Okay.
Great.
So,
That's what we need.
I mean, is that consensus that we
Would you
were
like to just clarify that your motion was?
Clarify the,
to approve all the recommendations of the VAB
With 4 weeks.
with 4 weeks
Before
registration
we
period?
accept off-island children.
Perfect. Thank you as always very much for your time.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Manager?
Thank you.
Clarify for the administration exactly what the items, you said all the items, could we go over?
Well,
them?
okay, can you just list
Happy to do it.
the recommendations
10 and under going forward will only be for Key Biscayne kids only,
subject to?
subject to 2 things. One, people who work full-time on the island with proper proof, and we're giving an exception to 5 of the volunteer coaches in the rugby program who may have their children 10 and under. And then the other thing is that rugby, soccer, it's been a long day, rugby, soccer, and field hockey, thank you, will be capped at their current levels. The other underperforming sports will be allowed to add children going forward.
And then the scheduling thing,
We've already
that
done
scheduling
It's
thing,
gonna
you'll
be
deal
4
with
weeks
that.
out.
Excuse me, the only thing I thought, volunteer coaches in general, whether it be rugby, now you only have rugby.
Right.
In the future, if you had other volunteer coaches, 5 and their kids would be priority. So
there aren't any really volunteer coaches, and here's the problem with that, respectfully. Okay. I'm a volunteer coach. Now my kid gets to play.
Right.
And then they show up once or twice, and that's what's going to happen. That's what you're inviting.
I think he's right.
There's no other programs that have volunteer, like flag football doesn't?
Flag football, unfortunately, is mostly paid. We have Paul Zuccarini, who serves on our board, is a volunteer. There may be one other, but it's mostly we're paying people.
I think we should do it on a case-by-case basis, because I'm all for it. I mean, I said this a long time ago. I said, volunteer coaches are the best.
There are always exceptions to all our rules. If somebody wants to come and say, hey, I'm really going to participate and do it, we'll certainly consider it and likely do it, but I don't want to give people that
No problem.
because I know what's going to happen.
Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you all.
All right, have a good day.
Listen, Mayor, just so we avoid misunderstandings. Both myself and Mr. Kaplan brought up, and Glenn mentioned that the female field hockey, Valencia left the room, they are satisfied. That's what I understood him to say. So we have, my vote is contingent on that statement. So it's a little confusing as a council member. I wish he was here to answer, but.
Well, she wouldn't.
On the record, but that's the understanding, and I believe Councilman Kaplan also asked that and got some information to that effect.
Just for the record, she would not have been, we wouldn't have been engaging. I don't want, this was our VAB coming to us and making a recommendation. I would not have brought, because then I have to say, well, where's soccer to talk about this? Where's volley? We had and I understand your point is taken and your vote is noted, but let's be clear, I would not have allowed. All right, thank you, Glenn.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Next item.
the next item, Mr. Mayor, is the consent agenda.
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Let's go.
Aye.
And the September 8th first budget hearing, the second budget hearing, and the
Those were
October
pulled.
12th,
Those three were pulled.
Okay, thank you.
Next
The
item?
next item, Mr. Mayor, is the first reading of an ordinance of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, amending Section 2-10.
You missed a resolution. Oh, no, I'm sorry, that was on the consent agenda. I apologize. Go ahead, my bad.
Sorry.
I was confused.
Advisory boards of Chapter 2 of the Village Code of Ordinances relating to advisory board administration and board member requirements, providing for severability, providing for codification, providing for conflicts, and providing for an effective date.
Moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Second.
Yeah, I think there's a lag, otherwise, Councilmember Laredo. Okay, I'm going to open this very quickly for public comment. Is anybody here in the room who wishes to speak on this item? Paige, if you can do the announcement on Zoom.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. If anyone wishes to speak on this ordinance, please dial the following phone number. Phone number is 305-365-7569. And then please enter the meeting ID of 231-627-8415. Then please dial star 9 to raise your hand in the system. Thank you.
Okay. We got anybody? Let's give them 30 seconds. Nobody, Pete?
I have no one signed up to speak, sir.
Okay, we'll continue. If somebody does raise their hand, then we'll make an allowance for those folks. Councilmember Laredo, this was your item, if you want to proceed.
As per your instructions, I discussed, we had several discussions over the last 2.5 years to codify and amend it, and I worked with the city attorney. The language that is there is consistent with our decisions, and he can speak further to if you have any questions. It's just sort of codifying it into an order.
All right.
Yeah, I can go through some of it.
All right, why don't you lead us through it, and then we'll have, I mean, I have some comments, but I'll wait until.
Councilmember Laredo had brought forward the two-year term limitation. That's already been adopted by you guys, so that's already in the code, so that's not changing. The 7-member board limitation, that was adopted by the council, so that's not changing either. Going through kind of the big points here was really just clarifying the staff liaison and what's occurring there, clarifying that these boards are just advisory. I think everybody understands that, and that they serve to the council, the pleasure of the council, and not to the manager, and they don't direct the manager. Kind of some of the big ticket items in here, I guess, were the anti-nepotism provision, which is the spouses cannot, not just spouses, but a relative can't be appointed to a board. I utilized the definition under state law. There's a state law for cities that are larger than ours that have 35,000 people. They have a anti-nepotism provision for boards. So it doesn't apply to us except if we had like a planning and zoning board, which we don't. But since I thought using that definition of relative might be helpful, I'm not tied to it, but just as a start. Also, there's a provision that if you're a registered lobbyist in the village, or if you're an owner, officer, or director of a business entity that has a contractual relationship with the village, that you'd be precluded from serving on a board. I tied it to being as a registered lobbyist. I think Councilmember Laredo's language is a little broader, but I thought that was a very definitive point that we as the village can make that determination. If someone's registered as a lobbyist, you can't be on a board. The other items were purely just cleanup, except for the requirement that you have to be a resident to be on a board. We currently have no boards that have non-residents. If you remember, we we had one board that did have the ability to have non-residents, and we struck that from that board. I guess the last point I'll make is that per our charter, every time we create a board, it has to be by ordinance. So, you know, some of these going forward, there might be certain boards that have more specifics to those boards than what you're finding here. What you find here is just the general rules that are applying to all boards. That's the way our code was set up when we were founded. And what we do is we follow these general rules, and then when we have a new board, we adopt an ordinance specifically to that board. Councilmember Laredo, I hope I summarized it well. In front of you.
Yes, the only clarification that I had with the city attorney is the issue of lobbyist as a definition. My language has to do with anybody that comes before the council or anticipates to be before the council. It should not be, that's just very basic. He thinks that under the definition of lobbyist, that would be covered. But for example, somebody who is selling services to the village, or has recently or is anticipating to sell services, including products, should be included. This is all pretty clear language, and I think it's not controversial, pretty standard in all levels of government. So I didn't expect any problem with that. And in terms of the relatives, it's the state law language, and we have in a grandfather clause, so that anybody who's serving there now will not be kicked out of those boards, but it's moving forward for that sort of thing. The gist of it, and I just remind us that we started this 2.5 years ago. This is hopefully the end of the process. We got one full council meeting on this issue back in, I think, March of 2019. And we've come a long way. This is the last 2-3 things issued. So we can have a clean, more tightly defined processes to follow, as we say, to follow the rules. And to give responsibilities also to the village clerk to keep us informed of when vacancies come up, et cetera, et cetera. That's the gist of it.
And let me ask you this, Mr. Attorney. This only applies to the advisory boards, correct? The special magistrates aren't covered by this, or are they covered by this?
This only applies to the
advisory boards.
Okay,
because you know, and again, Councilmember Laredo, I appreciate your efforts on this. You know, the cleaning up, and there's a lot of things in here that you've clarified, and you're right. We've spent a lot of time on this. My two issues are with M and N. You know, first of all, they're advisory boards, so there's no real power in these boards. I don't see them as, we're not giving them any power. We're just asking them for advice on things. With regard to no person shall serve on a board who is registered as a lobbyist in the village or who is an officer, owner, or director of a business entity that is in a contractual relationship with the village. You know, I guess I'm trying to think of ways in which, you know, suppose somebody's providing food to the village for different things, and they're a restaurant owner. Would that person be considered a contractual? Yeah. So I mean, I think we're a small town. What's that?
It should be.
Oh, it's a contractual relationship, but I don't necessarily. They're already precluded from voting on something that, like, we all have to recuse ourselves if there's something that we may have some relationship to, and I think that's true of these advisory boards. So I would say that I'm not in favor of that. And I'm also, the nepotism one, and Councilmember, you and I had spoken about that. I'm not a fan of that. I would have, those two sections would be ones that I would want taken out. I think everything else is good. I think it does definitely clarify and assist us moving forward. But those two, at this point, I would say, you know, I agree with you. If we're talking special magistrates, I don't want people who are lobbyists or have an interest that could be conflicted out. But that would be my position. Vice Mayor and then Councilmember McCormick.
On A,
Allison's before me.
where it says village council and directly to village council and not to the village manager.
Right.
It should be village council and to the village manager. The village manager should know what the advisory boards are discussing and what they're presenting, and if he can help them, there's no reason why he shouldn't be able to. But to preclude him from participating. You agree, Luis?
Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry, that was an information.
Where is that?
So that'd be line 4 of section 210A would be, you just remove the not.
And Vice Mayor, the reason I put that in is because there've been some complaints that sometimes board members or chairman thereof, they kind of get out of the lane.
Right.
And they start looking at the staff liaison as their employee and adding both work and time that takes them away from their normal. But I agree, it should be concurrent so that the manager knows what's going on.
But I think they're going to have a liaison. I mean, per this, we've clarified that there's going to be a liaison. So the liaison would technically be the person reporting.
No reason why
but
the manager
okay, that's fine.
Ed, can I just comment on that? And I'm sure you have more after, but I think it's important that we maintain the language that they are an advisory board, advisory role to advise the council. And I would be not so comfortable taking out not the village manager, but maybe by adding some language that they should not report to, but inform.
Fine.
Like, I see the need to keep the village manager in the loop and advised of what's going on, but it's in the charter. They report to the council. This is a council advisory board. The manager has the ability to put together citizen boards if he wishes, like he did with the hiring of the police chief. And I think I wouldn't want to remove not that way. I'd rather change the language to make it clear that they should keep the manager informed, but that their role is to advise the council.
So just change it to inform maybe, and inform the village manager.
Take out not to and put
Councilmember Laredo, does that make sense to you?
Yes, ma'am, I'm trying to just move this forward. I think the intent here, as I said, was that there has been bad practices, unfortunately, in the past.
Okay, next.
I respect the intent. I think that.
And you're right. You're absolutely right, by the way. It is right to the language of the charter. And so you're right. But the spirit is not to let anybody out of the loop. It's just that.
The next item is C.
The manager, you're right. The manager has a liaison there, and as long as the board members are briefed, which we need to do a better job when we appoint them, that they are advisory to us and they are facilitators, are the staff liaison, but they don't work for them.
Right. All right. And C.
Next thing is C.
Vice Mayor, you're next.
We're sunset and basically include appropriate sunset provisions. I think all boards should sunset, we'll say, in 8 years. So at that point in time, council will determine, do they really need the advisory board going forward? Or are we just having unnecessary advisory boards? Or the task has already been taken care of? There's no reason to continue. So every 8 years, if you think it's a good idea, you reauthorize it for another 8 years.
So just so you know, what we do as far as this, in the specific board ordinance, like if you were to create board X, Y, and Z, we always put in there a sunset period specific to that board.
So we do a sunset board. Okay.
Yeah, so, but it's specific. You know, for example, sometimes it says you sunset immediately upon the delivery of the report in it. Or sometimes it says, like, for example, you know, we have boards that have a 1 year period.
And we just remove the word may, and it says, and include an appropriate sunset provision.
That's fine.
Okay?
What line is that?
Last line, C, remove may, which is the next to the last line about the fifth word from the right.
And shall include, you say?
No, just get rid of may and
include.
Declaration and include an appropriate sunset provision.
Well, if you take it, or may provide for the board to serve for a limited time and include, so the prior may, the prior may would rule, Frank, I think you'd agree with me, if it says, or may provide for the board to serve for an limited duration and include an appropriate sunset, I think you want to put a shall in there. Okay. You want it to be a different phrase essentially than.
Shall,
there's 3 mays.
The ordinance,
I think
the ordinance.
Because
you're the wordsmith.
we know it needs to include the appropriate sunset,
right.
so it's shall as opposed to may.
That's good. All right. The next thing is D, and that goes down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th line, fourth word from the right, reappointed. I think there should be a term limit, the same way we have a term limit, and possibly want to make it 4 years, 6 years, 8 years, but we definitely should have a term limit on the thing. Because there's a lot of people that say, you know what, we reappoint the same people, you see the same people all the time, and other people don't have a chance. So I think we should have term limits in there. It's great that people, and give more people the opportunity to participate in village government and helping the village be a better place. So you guys pick the years
So
you
it'd be
want.
maybe reappointed to additional terms, but no more than
4 years consecutive.
4 years, 6 years consecutively?
That's fine.
Let's say 6.
6 years
No
consecutive.
more than 6 years consecutively?
Is that okay with you, Luis?
Do we want,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
do we want 6 or do we want the way council has of 8? And the reason I say that is only because tonight was an excellent example where we really benefited from some amazing institutional knowledge and someone who's been involved for a really long time. And with a lot of turnover, you certainly do lose things. I am all for getting new people involved, and I really frankly can't imagine anyone wanting to do this excruciating volunteer work for that much longer than 8 years or 6 years. But I throw that out there that I do have concerns about really limiting volunteer terms because of the good work that a lot of these boards do and the institutional knowledge.
I understand where you're coming from, but also there's a lot of other people in this community who have the ability, who might want to participate, and obviously they don't have the institutional knowledge today, but they're quick learners.
Yep. No, I'm all for having a term limit. I'm throwing out there the idea of 8 years
I'm fine
to
with 8
mirror what we have on
I'm fine with 8
council.
years. Okay, no problem. Okay, next
So
item.
just
All right.
to be clear, that 8-year period though would start, for someone who's been serving for a couple
would
years, it
be-
would start from that point forward.
Whenever if they've been doing it for 2 years, they go right 2 years towards the 8. It's not going to start.
No. I
Yeah,
think you
again.
would start. I think you would then have 10 in that example.
No. What I'm saying is, let's say someone who now has been serving for 2,
Yes.
they can serve for 6 more.
Well, and I'm suggesting to you, I think that, look, whatever the council wants to do, but typically the way you do it is you run it, you grandfather in those 2 years and you give them, another 8, but you can do whatever you want, but we just got to be clear.
I understand,
Okay,
but-
except
Yeah.
I don't want to get bogged down in specific cases now. Like, this was really good work to have good, clean rules for us to follow going forward.
Right.
Even though the case may be that if someone has been sitting there for multiple years, their 8-year limit starts now, they still have 2-year terms from this and would
Right.
need to be renewed. And it is clear, for me anyway, that the appetite of this council and of this community is to rotate more people through the board. So we would have the opportunity at the end of their 2-year term to change them for someone else if there were someone who was interested in the position. So I don't want to get bogged down in not doing what's right here for the rest of time,
Right.
just because there's people who may be sitting in their seat for a long time. We still have the ability to change them now after 2 years.
Correct.
Yeah, but I guess my point is that for the benefit of the public and everyone to know, if someone has been serving 8 years, are they off then once this is adopted?
Right,
Yes.
no.
And the
I-
term is
That's
done.
the point.
They're grandfathered in until the end of their term.
Okay, well, we just got to be clear. Whatever you guys want to
Well,
do.
you're the guy who makes it clear.
I'm the guy who writes it. I need to tell me if you want to say you get another 2 years after or whatever, but we need to come up with a rule. So
So I want to say something like, if someone already served 8 years, they can serve 2 more years.
something to that
Is that
extent.
acceptable to
I'm fine
everybody?
with that.
Fine. Yes?
Yes. that's
Okay, fine. So it's an 8-year limit, but if you served 8 years already, you can serve 2 more. All right. The next thing is F. Second line, basically 3 days' notice. I understand two days' notice if it's a special meeting and you got to get something done right away. But there's no reason why for a regular meeting, you can't give the public 7 days' notice or 2 weeks' notice.
Agree.
There's no reason to limit that to 3 days.
So 7 days?
I agree.
Okay.
Can you just, I'm sorry, I was writing which line is it in?
That's
F?
line 2 of subsection
Oh, I
F,
see.
generally
Okay, got it.
at least
7 days.
7 days.
Got it, okay.
Do you want something else in there that, like, there should be an effort given to have regularly scheduled meetings so the public can predict it, or are you happy with 7 days?
No, I think you do.
We can't do that because
Okay.
each board is a little bit different when they want to have meetings, et cetera. Okay, now, of course, now's when I disagree with Mikey. Numbers,
M, and
M, okay, now, obviously, my wife is not going to like this because basically she can't serve anymore. So,
That's why you're doing it. That's why you're supporting it.
no, not at all. But I am completely against the nepotism or the conflict of interest and the transparency. So I believe it's a good idea what you've done here. I agree with Louise 100%. I also believe that anybody, like you said, somebody's selling food, providing food to the village or some other thing, as far as I'm concerned, they have a business relationship with the village and therefore can't be on an advisory board.
Well, that would mean, so theoretically, a business owner who's got a restaurant can't be on the Winter Fest advisory
No,
board.
it means a business owner who has a restaurant who's selling food, not to the general public, which we might be going there, but supplying food, we'll say, to one of our events. That's correct.
So they can't, like, the food in the back, I'm not sure
No,
who it was,
exactly.
but that owner would not be able to be on the Winterfest advisory board
That's correct.
because they're,
That's right.
because they're selling food to the,
Yeah, I never, when we wrote this, I don't think that we considered that to be considered a contractual relationship. I mean,
that's my concern is
not
that.
in that particular circumstance. I mean, the village clerk rotates throughout the community and buys food. If you wanted to include that, that's fine. But that wasn't the intent when we
I
wrote.
just want to make sure that there's no conflicts and there's transparency, because we're always accused of self-dealing, of doing different things, and there's no reason why we should be accused of anything when we're really trying to do our jobs.
I got
And the
accused of
people-
going to Hawaii on the village's
I'm sorry?
dime. I got accused of going to Hawaii on the village's dime. I've never been to Hawaii
I
and it
thought you
didn't
went to
happen.
Australia.
South Africa, but that was on my own.
I'm sorry, that's not right.
But I think
didn't
we're
take
a
it
small village, and I just, these things, like, I don't like the nepotism
hear where
rule.
you're
and I-
coming
you know,
from.
and I understand if this was for, again, these are advisory boards. So that's where I have the
So
issue
when an
with this.
advisory board gets involved with something then becomes financial, then it's no longer
Then they have to
advisory.
recuse themselves.
Well, I know what they're supposed to do. So,
On this one, on N,
Yeah. And as in Nancy.
I kind of, wow, I keep coming right in the middle of two different people's opinions tonight, but I find myself between the two of you that I agree with that I don't, beyond just I have to recuse myself on this one issue, if it is an area where that person really does business with the village, I don't think they should be on that board. However, I do think of us as a very small community, and, well, growing, but a small community. And I think that when people have talents and expertise, I don't want to see us putting into an ordinance something that limits future councils of getting the best person for the job. If I were to have written this, I would have liked to have seen something maybe more specific to the area in which they deal with the village. So if you, I don't know, you do the janitorial services, but you have kids involved in sports and you want to serve on the VAB. Those to me don't seem like a conflict.
I have an idea. To satisfy everybody, I think. Well, don't look at me like that, even you. So anyway, basically what I'm saying is that make it strict as tough as possible, including everything. And then the council has the right for an exception. But that way it is public and everybody knows what we're doing and everybody knows the potential conflict, if there is potential conflict.
I think that creates the possibility of some real ugliness down the road of, look, they gave it to him because he works for the village. I think it should be very, very clear that they should not serve on a board in any area in which they have dealings related to dealings they have with the village. Otherwise, I think you really are limiting involvement and punishing people for living and working in their own community.
Okay.
Which is, I think, something that makes Key Biscayne really nice. The fact that we try to do things with our businesses in our own community.
Councilmember Laredo?
I think Moss was first.
Oh, okay. Councilmember Moss, sorry, I missed Councilmember Moss.
Just on that item that came up, and I think a lot of the stuff I'm okay with, but I'm always very cautious about adding too much restrictions to councils that can make decisions case by case. But the item that you brought up, Councilmember McCormick, one of the on N, what I'm actually worried about on a registered as a lobbyist in the village, me as an architect, and I have to do something in the village, maybe not on council because that would be conflict, but I have to do something in the village, or any of our architects that have to come here in front of the village or have to register as a lobbyist. I have to do it in the city of Miami Beach. Anytime we're doing a public hearing, I have to register as a lobbyist.
That's ridiculous.
So what would happen is that if we need to put a board together, that we need expertise from people who live in Key Biscayne to bring architecture expertise, we may not have anybody be able to do it because they may have to all have registered as lobbyists. So I feel that I'm okay with the owner, officer, director, contractual relationships. I'm fine with that. But the registered lobbyist, I'm a little bit worried because that can mean many different things. And that's not a contractual relationship. That's a contractual relationship with a client. It has nothing to do with the business or anything financial to that. So I would actually ask for the registered as a lobbyist in the village to be removed so we don't have things like that that can come in front of us. The other one that I just want to make sure, and I hope we don't need to go into this, and I know this has been done in the past, but and sometimes we get a lot of people very interested in boards. Sometimes it's difficult to find people want to sit on boards and volunteer their time. But we did make there is a change in here saying that only can serve on one board. Are we sure that we want to do that and limit ourselves? Sometimes the expertise of one person can actually be used on two boards, that maybe we can't find somebody else who has that. We could make it a guideline to try to not have that, but there may be times when we actually need it. So that also concerned me, and those are my comments.
Could we try and add to that, one board unless there are no qualified applicants for another board?
Or hold some type of expertise that is needed.
Can you do that?
Member Segarola?
I agree that we got to make this as strict as possible because all these exceptions that we're creating, we're sliding back to exactly where we were before or even weaker. We need change. Institutional knowledge is great, but the same person in one position, 8 years is more than enough time. If they want to stay on and advise whoever the new person is, that's perfectly fine. If we make it as strict as possible and then, like Ed said, judge exceptions on a case-by-case basis in public with full knowledge and input of the people, that's the best way to go. We're no longer a village of 3,000 people. We're 15,000 people and growing every year, even though we don't have any more space. So we need to bring new blood and we need to encourage, and there are plenty of new people that are interested in participating, just they see a roadblock, that they see the same faces all the time. So they figure, I don't have a chance, why should I even bother? We should I'm not for even putting a 6-year term limit. I think we should do a 4-year term limit. But if the support's there for 6, I'll do 6. But I'm not for weakening this. If anything, let's make it tougher. And I appreciate the work that Councilmember Laredo has put into this. But we're just backpedaling by creating all these exceptions.
Okay. Yep. Councilmember Kaplan? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Councilmember Laredo, you were after Councilmember Moss.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, just, again, to put it in perspective, let's be a little bit more candid. There is a problem in this community that people think are cliques, and they look at boards, and it's the same names. Now, that's what triggered us to do 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, this process. In public life, at all levels, the perception of conflict is as important as actual. If we send any message, I think backtracking, to be honest with you, when I started putting this together, these are the 2 areas where I thought we would have the least, though I respect the other points of view, that we would have the least, that we would have the most consensus, because it is just standard practice. The language on despotism is a state law. It has an exception for 35,000 and below cities, because of the areas of the possibility of not the pool of talent. We have in Key Biscayne the reverse, not problem but blessing. We have an abundance, as I said, an abundance of talent that wants to volunteer and feels that they cannot break through for whatever reason. There's no need to blame into being on these boards. So I think that that language is a stay law language. It tells you that the spirit of the legislature is one where despotism and the appearance thereof is vital for a transparent government. I thought it was a no-brainer. I think if we dilute that and dilute the two people or not serving in more than one board, we really do have a lot of talent, Councilman Moss, and a lot of it is frustrated. And I approach them about boards. They say, "Well, you know, it's nothing going to happen because we don't have the votes, or I'm not popular with one." So that, to me, I would think it would be a terrible message. Probably would have been better not to have gone down this road to say, "Well, yeah, we're going to try to clean up this ordinance or make it the rules clear, but we're going to leave the possibility." Let's be clear about this lobbyist or doing business thing. I mean, I think it's not the most effective example about the restaurant and selling to being on the board. I think we're talking about, between us here, clearly, people who are lawyers or have a professional service and have come before the council for decisions that are important to their clients, as it rightfully should be, and or are in a position that will be predictably are going to be before the council for decisions that have to do, for example, on zoning. So that's the reality. And people who are selling other services, whether there are all kinds of services, it's just, to me, very important that we send those messages out. And rest assured that, in my opinion, and I think most of us would agree, that we have an awful lot of people who are standing by. We can't push them to do the ultimate volunteer work, to be crazy enough to be on this council. But they're willing to do a little bit less than that and work. And this sends the wrong message if we backtrack on these two things, in my view. And I don't think it would have an impact in the pool of people that we can attract. So I would urge that this conflict of interest to stay tight and rigid, and also the nepotism language that comes from the state law.
Frank, Councilmember Kaplan, go ahead.
I think to make this discreet and somewhat abbreviated, I guess I would respect the institutional premise that obviously there's been a lot of thinking and work done on this at a time when I was not serving on council. I'm in a very different place than everybody else on this dais. And I think that there's some laudable ideas that could be better articulated. The principle of not having a conflict of interest is fundamental. The abuse to some of the staff liaison I've witnessed. The answer to that, I think, is not an ordinance like this, but rather better training and better policing of how people behave on committees. The clerk's reporting when vacancies are coming up is just common sense and would be helpful. The goal of expanding citizen engagement has always been a primary driver for everybody who sat in the center chair in my life's experience here and everybody else supporting that person. I can think back to Joe Rasco when he served as mayor. Same principle with Bob Vernon. I know it was true with me. I know it's true with you. Not just when vacancies arise, mayors actively go out and encourage all the time people to get involved in things and try to plug them into jobs, even if it's make work. I've done that a lot. I think sometimes to good avail. Sometimes it's difficult and frustrating. So I'm surprised at the premise that it's difficult to break through. To me, if that is a problem in reality, the answer to that problem is to reach out to people. I'm going to vote no on this, and I wouldn't try to improve it to my liking in this moment now. You've put a lot of work into this, as I said, when I wasn't here, so I'm just going to vote no. I'm comfortable, and I actually prefer less uniformity, less standardization. I think some standardization and improvements are always good, but I think that this excessively seeks standardization, maybe to the detriment of what we're trying to do here. Not all boards are the same, and I don't think 7 members is the right number for every single board. Not all boards have the same responsibility and duration of work. And I think a term limit that's made uniform, applicable to everything, is the wrong approach, especially because we do ordinances board by board to create and populate and give the mission to the board. It seems to me the time to be specific about what's necessary for the board is in the ordinance that creates the board. That's, I think, basically the way it's always worked. To my way of thinking, it's always worked very well. Albeit, if there's a problem with breaking through, the whole point of this is, well, among the points, is to encourage people to get involved in the public life in the community. There are other points too. The dissemination of knowledge and the study of things that are necessary to help us do our jobs with wisdom. The deployment of expertise, the likes of which we saw tonight, that comes from years of working the same problem with the same people sometimes. So I don't like this ordinance, and I think it's the wrong direction, so I'll leave it at that.
Councilmember Moss?
I think that, I mean, talking about breaking through, you appointed me to the EAB back in, I don't even remember, 2012 or whatever. I don't think I've even met you. I just sent you a random email, said I was interested in it, and next thing I knew, you called my name, and I think I even spoke to you maybe a couple months after that for the first time. So I really didn't know you. So it does take a little bit of, reaching out, but I think that there was also success on the vision board that came up recently where we advertised it very well, and we got a huge list of names, which was a huge success. So if it's about breaking through, maybe it's really not about this, but it's more about getting out the word that this is open, we're looking for people. Unfortunately, in that one, I think the mayor decided that there were people who were already on there that did not, because of COVID, there was an issue, but there was a huge group of names that you could choose from, and if that board needs more people or new things come out, I'm sure those same people are going to reach out and want to join them. And I think that's the correct way to try to get to solve the breakthrough is really, advertise out there. And I think that with how we're doing our public outreach right now is improving, and it's getting to a lot more people. But yes.
Okay. I'm going to move for the removal of M and N. I don't think I have the support, but I'm going to move for the removal of M and M from the ordinance.
I'll second it.
Okay.
I don't have, it's M&M of the conflict of interest and.
Correct, as they exist right now.
Right.
Is it the conflict of interest is already in the ethical code that each board member has to abide by no matter what? Is that correct?
To the extent that they have a conflict personally in the matter, correct? Yes.
And they're all trained in respective conflicts and ethical standards.
The way that historically the village has set up these boards is there's an initial meeting that explains the public records laws, sunshine laws, and ethics laws. Each of these boards are required actually to file a financial disclosure requirement per the county code, and they're bound, like I just said, by the ethics laws. This would be going, obviously, this is more stringent than that.
Do they have to take ethics course?
No,
not right now. All right, so that's my motion. It's been seconded. I don't want to beat around the bush. I think we all have our opinions, so if you could just call the roll on this one.
Councilmember Kaplan?
Yes.
Councilmember Laredo?
No.
Vice Mayor London?
No.
Councilmember McCormick?
Yes.
Councilmember Moss?
Yes.
Councilmember Segurola?
No.
Mayor Davey?
Yes.
Motion passes.
So let me understand what we just did. I have to admit I'm a little bit astonished. we have deleted the language that has to do with conflict of interest that traces the language in the state law. And we will also not have the nepotism language, I'm sorry, that included in M&N. That is, I don't know what else we've done, but I agree with Segurola. We've actually regressed in the world of perception, public perception, transparency. Sadly, I didn't understand, but I do a little bit more now.
We have
May I have a clarification?
the
on
motion's
other
been moved
item?
and seconded, so we now have to vote on the ordinance.
And this is
Or
as
any changes in it?
yeah,
the ones
as the
we've been
changes.
discussing?
Um,
The change-
Ed, no pizza. So this is the amended as amended. The
But
ordinance
Jocelyn,
as
do you want to
amended.
read through
I'm
what
sorry, I want a
what changes you
clarification of the
have?
changes.
I can go
please,
through them
and-
if you
Yeah,
want.
let Chad go through.
I'll do it. On the section A, we're changing the not to inform the village manager. On section C, we're changing in the second to the last line of section C, the last may to shall. In section D, where it says board members may be reappointed to additional terms, we are saying for a maximum of 8 years. And if you've served 8 years, as of the date of this ordinance, you can be reappointed for an additional 2 years. On section F, we're changing 3 days to 7 days. And then those are all the changes I had besides the ones that you just voted on.
Those consensus of council to make those changes.
Well,
Or is there a
I think there needs to be a motion to adopt the ordinance on first reading as amended with those changes.
No one?
I'm just,
Oh, I'll make the motion.
I don't think we have a chair right now, so we need to, someone has to run the meeting here. So,
Go ahead, Brett.
all right, or a vice chair. So we have a motion. We're looking for a second.
There's no second, so it fails.
I'm sorry, the ordinance?
That's what was on the table, to approve the ordinance as amended.
I wonder if we can get both the mayor and the vice mayor in the room to take a little pause. This is rather significant.
As amended?
There's a motion to approve the ordinance as amended at first reading. There was no second while you were out of the room.
Second, I apologize. Second. Okay.
Councilmember Laredo?
Let me think about it, come back.
This is your motion?
This is the motion on the ordinance as amended.
Right.
Vice Mayor London?
Yes.
Councilmember McCormick?
Yes.
Councilmember Moss?
No.
Councilmember Segurola?
Yes.
Mayor Davey?
Yes.
Councilmember Kaplan?
No.
Councilmember Laredo?
Yes.
The ordinance is approved on first reading.
Next item?
Just a moment, please. The next item, Mr. Mayor, is a capital project authorizing resolution of the Village Council of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, approving the purchase of 6 vehicles from Allen J. Automotive Management, Inc., in an amount not to exceed $245,000, providing for authorization, declaring certain vehicles as surplus property, authorizing the sale or disposition of surplus property, providing for implementation, and providing for an effective date.
Moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Council members. Benjamin Nussbaum, CFO. The resolution before you is to purchase 6 vehicles for our fleet. If you remember back when we had the discussion asking for For budgeting purposes, to address the fleet, we kind of mentioned at that time the condition of our existing fleet, how they've been neglected for some time, and we've now totaled 18 vehicles that have exceeded both the mileage and the year thresholds on our fleet policy. The other item that was mandated from council was to look at more energy-efficient vehicles. So for the first time ever, this resolution before you is purchasing 4 police interceptor hybrid vehicles. Additionally, the vehicle for the code compliance officer is an electric Chevy Bolt. So for the first time, we're going to move towards hybrid vehicles. The price differential between a hybrid and a regular interceptor is only about $3,000. I've calculated that we'll be able to break even within 1 year. Due to the gas prices and the idling of police vehicles, it's a pretty quick break-even period where I'd recommend that we go ahead and purchase the hybrid vehicles, where the village would come out ahead in years 2 through 7 pursuant to the policy. Happy to take any questions on the resolution.
Just a quick question. This is part of the program that we voted on multiple times about replacing the fleet on a rolling basis to have fresher vehicles, correct?
That's correct. That resolution was adopted in 2019. At the time, we had neglected these so much that we're still behind them. Eventually, these are going to slow down because the vehicles won't meet that threshold where they're required to be replaced. So last year we did one. This year we have another one. Eventually, it's going to taper off where we don't need to replace them at this type of frequency.
That was actually my next question. Do you foresee any further purchases in the next year as opposed to 2 or more years out?
Any what purchases?
Further purchases.
There will be.
In this coming fiscal year or after?
No, so this is the only one for fiscal year 22. I do envision another one in fiscal year 23. When we get to 24, 25, 26, there will still be, but not to this level where we need 6 at one time. It'll be for less.
Okay, thanks.
Vice Mayor?
Basically, I'd like you to defer the purchase of the vehicles at this time and analyze what vehicles do we really need? Do we really need a pickup truck for someone who's doing code compliance, or should he be driving a golf cart? Do we really need different vehicles if we're going to have chief people going, basically doing neighborhood type patrols? Should they be enclosed interceptors, or should they be open? So I really think we should be looking at our whole vehicle system or plan, what have you, and decide what we really need. Maybe we take that particular pickup truck that is right now that belongs to the code compliance and give that to a policeman and buy a golf cart for that guy. So all I'm saying is just instead of keep buying and replacing, we ought to look and see what we really need first. We have a lot of pickup trucks in the police department. And one of the reasons I was given before why we didn't want to have golf carts and other things for policemen was that we couldn't take prisoners back in the golf cart. Well, I don't know what you do with a prisoner in a pickup truck. I guess, tie them up and put them in the back of the truck. But so all of a sudden it was okay that way, but it wasn't okay the other way. So all I'm saying is Chief has just started here, and I'd like to have somebody, including the chief and everybody else, look at our entire vehicle plan or vehicle inventory and say, this is what we really need. And then come back and say, we need interceptors, we need this, we need that, before I'm prepared to vote on anything.
So if I may, respectfully, the chief did look at those things immediately, and there was a glaring need, and I'm sure he can speak for himself about that. Additionally, notice this resolution authorizes about $245,000 of the 300. The remaining amount will be for those type of utility vehicles to get more officers in the village green on those golf carts. So that is the vision that he has forward. This is replace existing cars, not maybe for community policing, but
well, my question is, do we really need more officers or less officers? So if we're going to have more cars, we're going to have more officers. And then when we have the cars, we have to have officers for the cars, else the cars sit around. Anyway, you know where I'm coming from, so I'm not wasting my time and effort with you guys, but...
Vice Mayor Linden, was that a motion to defer?
Yes.
Is there a second?
I guess it does.
I'll second for discussion, and I have a follow-up question.
Hold on. Councilmember Kaplan and then Councilmember Laredo, and then we'll come back to Councilmember Cigarella.
I'm glad the Chevy Bolt is here. Ed's point about the truck for code compliance is a compelling point. Police duty is another question for me, but code compliance, we've always wondered, why do they need a pickup truck? I think Public Works needs a pickup truck.
I didn't say that, I agree.
But code compliance ought to be light and low to the ground and nimble.
Open and see where you're going and see what's happening.
So just for clarification purposes, the Chevy Bolt is for code compliance. The truck is for public
What's the difference?
works.
It's still an enclosed car.
But you're taking the existing code compliance truck and you're going to slap a Public Works logo on it now? Is that what's happening?
We're going to get
There's a code compliance dump truck, a pickup truck, that's going to stay in code compliance.
Yes, I believe so.
That's the question. I think none of us understand why there's a truck in code compliance.
Well, he's here to discuss the finances of it, not the whys and wherefores of a truck versus a golf cart. I think
But it's utilization of.
I understand.
Of capital goods.
Okay, Councilmember Laredo, and then Councilmember Segarola.
Well, I just was wondering, I think I agree with Kaplan. I was going to ask the Vice Mayor if he would make the friendly amendment of having the police vehicles voted on today and defer it for a strategic vision of where we're going, because this is all, since I've been here, piecemeal. I brought some pictures and stuff from the Coral Gables Police Department before, and some of their sort of sophisticated golf carts, and the previous chief did not feel appropriate. So,
Councilmember, could you just?
I think the police is a priority. I don't know if Ed would agree to that amendment.
Can you restate your friendly amendment, please? He was not in earshot.
Just to extend from his motion the 4 vehicles for the police, is that possible, Ed?
Well,
we do both. I think we both have a concern about and other issues. The police chief coming in just barely 4 weeks ago, and while I know that he looks at the vehicles in a very careful, professional way, we're looking at elected officials are also trying to, trying to cut back on the budget, and so there may be a compromise of passing to today the vehicles of the police. If you feel like it, if not, I'll support your motion as a.
Thank you.
Would that be acceptable?
Let me give you a little background on that.
Ed, I'd like to build on that because I want you to answer that also, if it's okay. And Chief, before you speak, I just want to say I don't have a problem at all with the police vehicles. I think those are fine. The issue of the code compliance vehicle, actually, that's a very interesting point. And to build on what Councilmember Loreto just said also, Coral Gables has the golf carts that drive around on the streets, that they go around the neighborhoods constantly. So instead of, a Chevy Bolt is a step in the right direction, but why a Bolt at all when we can get one of those golf carts and we save $20,000-$30,000 right there in one shot? And if we look at it, not so much police, but code enforcement and public works in a more holistic sense, we can remove vehicles from the street and replace them with fully electrical, smaller, nimbler vehicles. So similar to what Councilmember Laredo just said, I would back that friendly amendment of okaying the police vehicles, but revisiting the Bolt, not okaying that part, and coming back to that at a future date, if possible.
Okay, so basically, during budget time, we're talking about number of police and what do we have to do, and back and forth. And at that point in time, Steve said, "Listen, give me 4 months once the new police chief comes in, and then he'll come back and tell us what we need." But I'll give him 4 months. So this is not 4 months. I'd like to wait till 4 months that we talked about. Then he can come back in and tell us, do we have the right size police force? Maybe we need more police. Maybe we need less police. I think we need much less police, but that's besides the point. But the point being is, we talked about waiting 4 months to do something. And now all of a sudden, after a couple of weeks, we're bringing the thing up. And it just looks like I'm being blindsided.
If I would, Vice Mayor, what we talked is particularly the 2 additional police officers was what we would bring back in either January or February. This is about replacing vehicles and whether they're good quality vehicles or not. They're real two different issues.
And if I may, one of the issues on timing is for
Mr. Manager. Oh, sorry. It's not 2 different issues. We thought we were working and having a strategic view or strategic review of what we're doing on all expenditures. So no, I disagree with your conclusion that you can segregate just vehicles, which is, something $1,000 you requested today. I don't expect the chief of police to object to it, but clearly I think what Ed London is saying is let's step back a minute and look at the whole issue of fleet. And my friendly amendment is, let's make it adjust your meeting in halfway and say, okay, let's move with the 4 vehicles for the police department. But what Ed was saying and what I thought we talked about at the last budget meeting, we were on the losing side, is that you were come back with the big picture thing. And I'm not sure that I was blindsided, but I was surprised that this came up so fast. So that.
All right, so
you would not be.
that's the question I was going to pose. Councilmember Laredo has made a friendly amendment to your motion.
Well, my motion is basically
to defer the whole thing.
Defer the whole thing.
Right. Councilmember Laredo is asking to allow for the police cars to go forward. Benjamin, I'm sorry, Mr. Nussbaum was going to make a comment about
So I want to address
timing.
the issue of timing and why this is coming before you at this moment. So we've had, I'm sure you guys have heard in the news, the same difficulty being able to procure vehicles. These are all piggybacked on the Florida Sheriff's contract. The reality is, yes, we could defer and bring this back later. The reality is the vehicles might not be available. So we've been able to hold these. My concern is, I don't want to force us to do something if we're not ready to do it, but my concern is if we come back, another 3 months as the chief has more time and we bring this item back, there might not be vehicles available and we have to delay another year in getting these. Just to put this in perspective, the purchase that we made in fiscal year 21, it's taken about 9, we still haven't received the vehicles. It's been a 9-month lag. With the fleet purchasing policy now, we're going to do this at the beginning of the fiscal year. We get budget authority starting in October. We put this on the first or second agenda item so we can hold these vehicles, because this is when all the municipalities come flush after the budget and start holding these vehicles. So if you don't do it now, these get released to other municipalities, and then we're fighting later if we then later decide to go forward. So that's kind of the crunch and why this is done now versus the staffing. Obviously, the chief will come back with the manager in 3 months and make that assessment.
So the cars we're replacing will have excessive repair costs at this time?
Yes.
Mayor.
Okay, then fine.
1 second.
Then I'll accept the friendly amendment.
Okay, that was my question, and now we can proceed. So the friendly amendment has been accepted to his motion to defer. Councilmember Moss and then Councilmember McCormick.
Yeah, I first want to start off saying that I'm going to lean on our, especially when it comes to golf cart and emergency vehicles, I'm going to lean on our chief to make the decision of what's needed for this village in an emergency. One of the questions I have for our manager is that this request is following our policy of 7 years or 100,000 miles. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So if we want to make changes, I think we need to go to the policy and change it if we don't feel that we're replacing these too quickly. Maybe it should be 8 years and 120,000. I don't know, and that's something that I think that we need to study. But we made a policy; it fits the policy, and I think they're working to what they need in that realm. So, I don't. Again, people always talk about the micromanaging. I mean, I think they're following what they need, and I support it.
Okay, Councilman McCormick.
I have my question is about not the police cars, but the code compliance car. What is this? Which car is this replacing? Because I feel like it's adding an additional. Okay. Because our other ones, I remember when they're new, right? Relatively. I mean, I know I voted for them. Brett, do you remember, Frank? And the reason we went with closed cars was because Judd said it's 1, too hot in the summer, and 2, they have computers and paperwork and they can't be out in the rain in a golf cart. And
yes, and against our better judgment, I think we deferred to that view, although we were skeptical.
Yeah, that was in 2017.
And we would certainly like to revisit that decision, I think.
Okay.
All right, so the motion to defer would be, I'm sorry, do you want to go?
I was about to ask.
No, the motion to defer is simply for the non-police vehicles.
Both.
Okay?
And approving the police.
And approving the police vehicles. That's the motion on the floor, right? Well, his motion is to defer, really, the other vehicles. Let's move on the deferral of the.
Couldn't you just do a motion to approve less the?
That's fine. I would move to approve less the non-police vehicles. How's that? Is that clear?
Sure that
Just an
He's not going to
observation.
allow me. He's going to say no. It's Ed. Hey.
We've spent the better part of the year.
Oh, he agrees with me. Wait a minute. I got Ed agreeing with me. Don't come out yet, Ed. He said he agreed.
We should have a drum roll.
You agree? You okay with that? So we're going to vote on.
Well, what's the motion, Mayor? Sorry.
Essentially, it's what Councilmember Segarola just said. We're voting on the approval of the police cars. We're deferring the non-police cars, non-police vehicles.
Frank's in the middle of a sentence.
That's a new motion.
And this is ready for a vote, but I have an observation. We've spent the better part of the year observing that code enforcement, code compliance is manifestly deteriorated in functionality compared to years past. And here's a proposal to acquire a Chevy Bolt, presumably to assist in that functionality?
Correct.
What's the driver behind adding an additional vehicle?
I believe in the budget, we added a position for a code compliance officer.
So this, it seems to me, responds to a complaint that we have levied, or at least an observation that we have levied about a deterioration in service in something rather mission critical.
I would agree, except that we've just had the conversation, as you brought up, that back in 2017, you would have preferred to have a further consideration of golf carts or some other service vehicle for that role. So I think, I don't necessarily want to defer it in perpetuity, but I think let's move the police vehicles because that's a critical thing that we can move now. And then let's talk about.
I'll support that.
That's what we're talking about here.
The Bolt, it seems to me, is, the rough equivalent of that vehicle.
Okay.
But I would like to have that conversation. And
I think it's a good conversation. I think we've got a number of conversations coming out of here. Councilmember McCormick?
A question about the cars that we bought when we had this conversation with first Judd and then Sergio. And my memory is that we bought two, one for Marilyn and one for Mike. And that they asked for a third because they were adding a part-time person and we said no.
That may be.
Where is that second car now?
So if you remember when we disposed of the code compliance employee, those vehicles were sitting and ended up getting sold because there was no use for them.
So that's the
fine.
reason.
Okay. The answer is my question.
Any other points or can we vote on this?
Just one, I
Okay,
would
go
just
ahead.
ask Benjamin if you can come back relatively soon, as you've heard, with alternatives like the vehicles, for example, that Coral Gables uses that are
enclosed, but
very sophisticated golf carts, but not vehicles, not cars.
Sure.
Okay.
I think they're called like Green Fleet.
It sort of looks like the freebie, but smaller. It's
called
not
their
as
Green
long,
Fleet.
but-
Yes, I sent the police chief some pictures. I can resend them.
Perfect. All right, let's vote on this issue and let's move.
Prior motions were withdrawn and.
Correct. The motion is to approve the police vehicles only at this time.
All those in favor?
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
So for the record, Benjamin.
No, he wasn't. I think he was there's a delay.
Jocelyn and Benjamin, when we finalize this, just remember we got to fix the amount that we're authorizing.
Right.
How much is the amount now? Do we know?
Something like that.
188, 190? He's good.
He's got a calculator in his
100, for the 4 police vehicles.
188, isn't it?
It's 180, yeah, put not to exceed 190,000.
Fine. All right, next item.
Next item is a resolution of the Village Council of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, selecting Beach Raker LLC for beach cleaning, maintenance, and beautification services pursuant to request for proposals number 2021-15 in an amount not to exceed $780,000 annually, providing for authorization and providing for an effective date.
Moved.
Second.
It's recommended by the manager, correct? Correct. So I think we can just vote on it.
I just have one question, and I know I've brought up this issue with you several times, but I just want to clarify for the record. This contract, will we have later the flexibility to do more beach maintenance certain times of the year and less other times of the year like we've discussed?
Well, the way it's going to end up working out is that in the times of the year that we don't need as much seaweed management.
November through March.
Yeah, that we won't be in those that effort then is essentially going to be banked for the time of the year when you really need it the
We
most.
could allocate the funds to the times people really
Yeah,
use the beach.
exactly.
Okay.
So we pay for what we need,
Yeah.
when we need it.
Yes.
We pay more when we need more.
Yeah. It's just that we're basically negotiating better trucking rates, and then we're banking the trucks for when we need them. That's what we're doing.
So,
Do you had one bidder?
There was one responsive bidder. There were 2 or 3 others that had expressed interest, and then in the end, when the deadline was to be met, there was only one that.
Did anybody call them to find out why they didn't bid?
Well, I don't know why the contracting company that expressed interest didn't bid, but then the one that was the in-water alternative, they submitted a letter saying that they didn't feel like they could do what we wanted them to do on the beach, and so then they didn't submit a package.
And the bid, and the other one, we don't know why they didn't bid.
Yeah.
Can I make a suggestion for all our purchasing and acquisitions? A lot of times people don't bid because we construct our RFPs in such a way, they say, you know what, this is just invitation to disaster. Some people who know already that they can work with us and the RFP doesn't mean that much, they'll bid. We had this with the dog park. We had 14 bidders come to the pre-bid conference. They went through the whole thing. Basically, we had one bidder after that. And the bidder who did the Miami park, dog park, who did it for less than half what we wound up spending, he didn't bid because of the way our RFP was written. And when he met everybody and talked to everybody, what we were expecting from him, he said, you know what, I don't need your aggravation. So we have to make sure, and I know you're looking at purchasing, that when we make our purchasing and make our RFPs, we're not scaring people away. And when you have a big contract and you can't get anybody to bid, it says to me, wait a second, either we're not soliciting people or we're making conditions such that the people who work for us now know they can work with us. But other people coming along and say, wait, I don't want to work with them. I'm looking at this document. I'm not going to get myself in trouble. I don't need a lawsuit. I don't have to people withholding money from me. So, I mean, maybe we can't do anything today, but going forward, we certainly should be looking, especially any time we don't have people bidding, where they look at, they want to bid, and then they don't, find out why they didn't do it. And even after this, even though it won't be for now, but call them up and find out, why didn't you bid? What was it that made you not bid?
Sure. I understand the rationale there. And in the defense of procurement, they did do a pretty extensive reach out.
I didn't say they didn't. I'm not criticizing anybody.
Yeah.
But I'm saying sometimes you don't know what you do to make sure that people say they're not interested.
Sure.
And the only way you find out is by asking them.
I've heard that unsolicited bids are very successful.
It's not even funny.
What'd you say?
All right.
Something about unsolicited bids.
Yeah,
All right.
the other thing-
Does anybody else have any comments or questions, or can we call the question on this?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion. Councilmember Laredo, was that a no?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Motion passes.
Next item?
The next item is a resolution.
Yes, you voted yes. It's just there's a little delay, so it sounded like you were voting no. So we were clarifying.
A resolution of the Village Council of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, authorizing the village manager to issue a work order to BCC Engineering LLC for professional engineering services relating to the Crandon Boulevard level of service and pedestrian and bicycle safety improvements project in an amount not to exceed $240,000 and providing for an effective date.
Moved.
I have
Okay,
180,000.
what's that?
240,000.
I have 180,000 as well.
I have 180,000 as well.
Yeah,
It's
so whatever is red.
180,000. We were able to reduce the scope a little bit and renegotiate.
Yeah, and just for the folks at home, this is, there was something in there about the Key Colony opening, a residential opening on Sonessa Drive being talked about. We're not voting on any openings. We're not voting on anything here. This is just about engaging the engineering firm to help us go through all of Crandon Boulevard and figure out what we want to do to make it a safer and more effective roadway. So that's just clarification for everybody.
Mr. Mayor, we have a question because I can maybe
Yeah, go ahead.
of the staff there. This is an item that we discussed in the budget hearing, and it's one of the comments I was going to clarify in the minutes, which of those meetings. But this is, Jake, this is, again, a study. This is not a shovel, brick and mortar paving work. This is another design. Call it what you want, but it's not actual physical improvement. It's another
consultant
step on how to do it. Is that correct?
Correct, sir.
These are not going to be permittable plans?
They will be.
Yes.
Oh, then it's not. It's not a plan. This is like permittable plans and. Yeah, but you need plans to submit for permit in order to put the shovel in the ground, right? So you have to do this.
Not Ed. Ed doesn't need plans. He just kind of goes.
We're not going back to redo the study we've already paid for.
No.
Yeah, it's not a study. These are plans.
This is a design.
Engineering design.
Okay.
But this is just the start of the process. There's going to be plenty of input from the community, right? Or
Correct. Deliverables will be contract documents for contractors to bid and construct.
Excuse me, for what permits? This is, we're the ones who issue the permits.
No,
what permits are you alluding to?
It's a county.
This council member, this is a county road, and therefore they have a permit authority over this road.
Is the purpose?
And they require this?
Yes, sir, they do.
I guess the question is this basically somebody's preparing working drawings or somebody's preparing ideas?
Working drawings.
So basically, once this gets done, Luis, if we like it, we go forward. It's not a question of consultant telling us what we should do, and then we hire an engineer to do working drawings, and then we go forward. It's one step, then go forward if we like it.
Councilmember McCormick?
Sorry. So, but these drawings are following the plan that we have, that Brett, Frank, and I received so many, many years ago, right?
Correct. The Corodino group had done initial planning analysis, and then in following, we coordinated with the Miami-Dade County, and they did further analysis on the county road, did traffic counts in last April or May, and they did some preliminary recommendations on quick wins that we could do to improve with immediate improvement. So one of them would be installing 300 feet right turn lane in Crandon Boulevard. Second would be extending Q lane, kick on, and so on and so forth. So this work order is actually going to authorize the engineer to go ahead and design those recommended improvements, and we can build them.
But we are going to have, I just want to be clear, we're having input from the community on all these things.
Correct.
Yes, we will. Okay. I just want to keep reiterating that so people understand that.
Yeah, because one of those is a new idea that I
Correct.
don't remember from the
for
Corodino
example,
plan.
The Crandon Harbor intersection, the Key Colony, entrance to Key Colony on Crandon Boulevard, those are the things that we know that we got to do. Now, the other things, the ideas that we're entertaining are possibly entrance to Key Colony from Sonesta.
Right.
Now, this proposal is going to revisit that and then come back with a recommendation, and then you all will vote and then tell us what to do.
But the other things that we already know we need to do, we are right now paying for the drawings to get the permits to finally act on this plan that we received. So, I mean, the date's in here. 2018.
We want to be in construction very soon. We want to move.
And that is very, very exciting news to me.
Yeah, it's great.
We've known this needs to be done, and we've been just on borrowed time that someone's going to get hurt. So thank goodness.
Yeah,
that answered my question.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm in full support of this because I always say that pedestrian safety along Crandon is the #1 risk in our community, and we got to do something about it. So this is getting us closer to putting those shovels into the ground.
Yes. Let's call the question.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Councilmember, was it?
No, I think, Councilmember, you were approving, correct? Councilmember Laredo?
Yes.
Okay, just want to confirm.
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to add, so you asked the question, we're going to do community engagement. Yes, I mean, my direction is to all projects, we do at least 2 community engagements, no matter what project it is. This may require 3 because it's pretty extensive, but at least 2 for all projects.
Right.
The next item, Mr. Mayor, is public comments.
All right. Is there anybody who would like to speak in public?
Mayor, now that the manager jumped in, I want to clarify something, if I may, because Councilwoman McCormick made a point, and it gets lost. The input from the public that has to do, for example, with the second entrance of economy is not, that is a study, that is a consulting. This, I understood, what I voted for is strictly a step. So I've been told that it's necessary to put shovels and move dirt on the ground as per the approved project before.
That's right.
Am I clear on that?
Yes, you are.
Yes.
And just to be clear, the Sonesta part has been added as a task, but yes, it's included in this because I believe that the economy of scale, that we're actually getting something that we would, otherwise it would have cost more money to have that separately.
The manager's statement confused me, and because that risks you on to the consultant, and that's fine. It's clarified. Thank you. Sorry for the
Okay,
interruption.
all right, no worries.
To clarify, council member, I mean, as in any design process, we want to make sure that we get community input. Obviously, we take the expert advice of the design consultant, but obviously we want to make sure that we have the input from the community as well.
But I think Councilmember Laredo's question, I'm not sure if this was it, but it raised this question for me. What we just voted to approve is for exclusively for the drawings for the plans that we already know we're doing, or it also has the additional, tell us what you think about Key Colony.
It has, go ahead. I think it has the.
So what it is, so this is a design contract to move forward for construction. Similar to what the mayor just said, there are items that we've identified as we've gone beyond for them to make assessment. One of which was the conversation we had at the golf cart workshop a couple weeks ago to take a look at some of the golf cart issues and the curb cuts. So there is a combination of design, which is going to move towards construction. And then Jake, if you want to lay out with some of the other assessments, you can mention
Yeah,
this
absolutely, yes. And again, so there are a number of elements built into this work order. So Crandon Boulevard and Harbor Drive intersection, new turn lane, those are the elements that we're going to go ahead and do the design. Same thing with Key Colony extension on queuing lane extension on Crandon Boulevard. It's also going to be designed. So we know that those are necessary things that we're going to have to do. Speed reduction in Crandon. We know that we got to do that. Now, Sonesta Drive and possibly have an entrance or exit from Key Colony to Sonesta Drive. We know there is a need for improvement. We don't know what's going to be. So we are going to analyze and bring some alternatives, whether it could be just exit only from Key Colony, so there's no queue on Sonesta. There may be exit, entrance, just residents only. It could be maybe entry for service vehicles. That we don't know. This worker is going to analyze it and bring alternatives forward. As well as the manager mentioned, we're also going to look at the golf cart entrance and exits on shopping centers on Fernwood Road. This is also included under this work order. So it does provide full engineering design and construction drawings of certain segments, as well as analysis for other areas that requires further decision before the council.
So it's both things. There's the analysis for the additional things that have come up, and that I support it, but I want to make sure that we're all clear what we voted on.
Right.
That these are things that have come up since we received this other study in 2018.
That's correct.
Like, for example, we just asked you to do this with the golf carts.
Exactly.
And then the other conversations with Key Colony. So, Councilmember Laredo, it sounds to me like the question I heard you ask was, is it just for drawings or is it drawing and study? And the answer is both.
Right, but thank you for speaking much better English than I and asking the question that I tried to. I don't want to say they're misled, but I asked 3 or 4 different times, including again in our second budget meeting about this issue. And the answer was all necessary work product to get permits. And so I voted on that. Now, after your pursuit, before, not only that, it becomes that plus some consulting.
Okay.
And can you give us, Jake, the difference? What is the required hard project cost versus the so-called consulting advice? Do you have a price on each?
Depends on, I think the entire construction cost is going to be $2 to $3 million range, based on what we know now. And again.
No, he's asking in terms of this, what we just approved, the 180,000.
Correct.
What portion of this would go to the design of or the consideration of the Sonesta entrance and the golf cart issues as opposed to the design issues?
Speaking from my memory, I would say about $150,000 that actually engineering drawings, about $30,000 to $35,000 be allocated for the planning portion.
Okay.
Which Sonesta would be planning.
Understood.
And I think if I could add, I mean, unfortunately, things change over time, and so you have to continue to update things. And one, for example, is the golf carts. The other one is also, and we'll mention it later when we bring up the library. The library is coming forward with design, so obviously we want to make sure that we integrate the library into the traffic issues. Okay. So what we don't want to do is design something now that doesn't take in consideration changes that we know are going to happen. So unfortunately, Commissioner Laredo, we do have to do a little study on that, but the majority of this is to do permitted plans for construction.
All right, let's go to public comments.
I just wish the administration was more direct, because I asked a question after McCormick asked a question, and then thank goodness she asked it the third time. And it just seems like we have a lot of gray areas. I'm not going to beat this to death, but Mr. Manager, we have at least 3 members in this council who voted against the budget, because we asked that it be reduced, the increase by 200,000 out of the first budget meeting, so we can all have a consensus 7 vote. You came back with just the $35,000 savings, so here we're talking about another $35,000. It just seems to be the same pattern that I saw before, but we clarified it, so we're voting, and I'm not going to give my vote, because I want to move on and give you more time to trust. But I am concerned about the way we throw money around and get to another report, another think tank, another stuff, and here we got another 35,000, just like that.
But
okay, wait. All right, we voted on this item. This item's been voted on. Councilmember Lewis. All right, so
I just want to make sure that the minutes reflect this difference, please.
Go ahead. Councilmember Moss wants to say something. Go ahead.
No, from working in this industry, I think that our manager is actually saving money for us, because this is going to come back to us at some point or another, because this has to do with traffic. And I think that what you're doing is you're picking up another need and trying to fill it into this, so we don't have to go through permitting twice. We don't have to hire somebody twice, which will go way over $35,000 by the time we get to there. So I think that I know, Councilmember Laredo, you're looking at it one way, but I think that this actually will end up being a savings where we can get what we need. And I think all of us can agree that traffic, especially in that area, is an issue, and we need input still with the public before any decisions are made. But I see that this step is actually a savings, not additional money spent. So I see it a little bit differently, but I understand what your concerns are.
Okay. All right, let's move on. We have public comments. Is there anybody signed up to speak, Pete?
Mr. Mayor, no one signed up to speak.
Does he want to read the instructions?
Does anybody okay. Yes. Pete, read the instructions, please. All right. Anybody in the chamber want to speak on public comments? You're all rushing to the podium. Okay. Hearing nobody. Pete, read the instructions, please.
I apologize, sir. I love you.
No worries.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. If anyone wishes to speak at this meeting, please dial the following phone number: 305-365-7569. Then please enter the meeting ID of 231-627-8415. Then if you do wish to speak and you're currently signed out in the Zoom app, please raise your hand. And if you are dialing in, please dial *9.
Okay. Anybody, Pete?
No one signed up, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Let's go to reports or recommendations.
Next item, reports and recommendations. Village manager, manager's report.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, so what I'd like to do in request of Councilmember Laredo is I'd like to have the audit committee selection item brought up first.
Good evening again. One of the directives we received from the council was to review all of our existing contracts and make sure the village was receiving best value, best price, and best service. One of the contracts that's since come to a close at the end of fiscal year 21 is for our external auditors. The state has, through Section 218 of the Florida statutes, very rigid requirements in terms of the process to select a new auditing firm and how that process works. One of those items is the village will issue an RFP to solicit bids, and the village will have to put together an audit committee to then score those bids. One of the requirements of that audit committee is it has no less than 3 people, and 1 member of the governing body must serve as the committee chair. So bringing this to you early so that you amongst yourselves can determine who you would like amongst council to be that representative to sit on the selection panel with the 2 other people. By Florida statute, I and any village employee cannot sit on part of that selection panel. I can serve as an advisory role, answer questions, but I will not be voting.
Do we appoint the other 2 members as well as one of our own, or we only appoint the council member?
You appoint the council member, and we will appoint the 2
And you want us
others.
to do that tonight?
I would recommend the faster
I
we...
move Councilman London to.
Yeah, Vice Mayor London was the obvious choice.
Yeah, I'll second
Sorry, Pete, what were you motioning? Pete Culpa just ran in. Pete?
Yeah, I didn't understand.
Oh, you have a handout. Okay, we have a speaker. All right, let me table this for a minute.
Just to clarify also, it's at least, the board should be at least 3 people, so it can be more.
Okay, but right now, I think we all want to just put London on it and move on.
Yeah, he's all 3.
Yeah.
But I think you guys still then need to select 2 other.
Well, I think then we want to
I
get.
could do that.
But do we select the other 2, or who selects the other 2? We do. Okay. So should
I'll
we
second that.
And you don't have to do that tonight, but we.
No,
wanted to
no,
bring it
we're
to
not
your
going to select
attention.
all 3, but I think let's point. Let's have a vote on Ed.
All those in favor?
Aye. Okay,
Opposed?
Ed's our guy.
So in terms of the others, what generally happens if
carries.
you look at other municipalities is they will appoint finance directors from other municipalities who obviously are subject matter experts and understand what to look for in auditors and understand the RFP process.
Great. Come back and, give us some recommendations, I guess. Do that. Give us some
What we do,
recommendations.
Mr. Mayor, is work with the vice mayor over the next couple weeks and come back with a recommendation.
Beautiful. All right. We've got a speaker signed up. Pete, if you can go ahead.
Mayor, before you. Yes, Mr. Mayor, we don't appoint the other 2.
No, we don't.
Caller with the phone number ending.
Yes, you do.
We do.
Oh, we do.
And
Okay.
we should ask for.
They're coming back to us. Anyway, go ahead, Pete.
Okay, thank you. All right. Yes, Mr. Mayor. Caller with the phone number ending in 298. Please unmute yourself by pressing *6. Hello.
Hello.
Caller, you're live.
State your name and address for the record, please. You have 3 minutes.
3 minutes, Don Ellsberg at 177 Ocean Lane Drive, Unit 1111. I have a question about the materials that you just voted on for the $180,000 study. I'm not necessarily quarreling with that, but I noticed that one of the proposals was a modification to Harvard Drive, Fernwood roundabout, which is where St. Agnes is, to eliminate the left-turn movement from Harvard Drive to Fernwood. That is going to create a traffic nightmare for people who have to come from Ocean Lane Drive up to Fernwood or come out of the shopping centers and so forth. And I just wonder whether somebody's going to pay attention to that. It looks to me like it's going to be a problem that we've tried to deal with before, and I'm not sure that anybody was paying attention to that.
Okay,
Comment.
thank you.
All sites have to use Fernwood, so everybody's gotta come around to Fernwood, and if you eliminate that left turn, I don't know where they're gonna go, because I don't know what the next street is they can really take.
Agreed. All right, is that it?
Oh, there's going to be public.
All right.
input.
Yeah, there'll be public input on this going forward, but thank you, Don.
Okay, but it just seemed like, a strange shot. Take care.
All right, bye.
Bye.
All right, anybody else, Pete? Okay.
No, Mr. Mayor.
Are we going back to the charter revision?
Let's move
as
on.
part
Now
of
we've
that,
got to
right?
talk about the Charter Review Commission.
Sure. So pursuant to our charter, every 10th year, actually, this is the first time. It used to be, I think, every 7 years, and then we changed it at the last charter revision to every 10th year.
Correct.
We have a charter revision commission that's appointed by the council, and it needs to be appointed per the charter at the first meeting in December.
Okay.
And it's a quick turnaround. So the commission will, and we'll get into the composition of it in a second, but they have to commence their proceedings within 45 days of being appointed, and they have to deliver their report by April 1st, and then at that point, the charter amendments, if there's any, will go before the voters.
Right.
The commission itself has the option to allow you as the council to accept all of their proposals or to just put them all on the ballot. So that will be at their discretion per the charter. The composition of the committee is it's a 5-member commission. One of the members is a council member serving a second term. A second consecutive term. So I believe we have 2 eligible council members. We have Councilmember Moss and Councilmember McCormick that are the 2 eligible members that can fill that position. The mayor is precluded from serving on the commission. So sorry, Mike.
Darn.
And then the other 4 members of the commission have to be electors of the village.
Okay.
So
Can I make a motion right now of who we should select?
So actually, per the charter, it says that
Be second term,
no, it says that
longest.
It's been done in December.
correct.
Okay, so we have to wait.
Our vote on this has to be in December?
It says at its first regular meeting in December
Okay.
of every 10th year, commencing December 2021.
All right, so we'll make the vote on next meeting.
At the next meeting.
And
but
I would ask everybody to bring some recommendations as to the board. We've got to vote for the board, or the commission rather.
Yes.
Commission, and so we need 4 electors to be the other members. One of you 2 has to be the council member, and so the other 4 will have to be electors. So, all right, that it?
That's it.
Okay, good. Well, then let's remember, and we're going to have that vote on December 7th, December 5th?
7th.
I think it's the 7th.
7th, sorry. For 11. Okay, next item.
Chief Lang?
Uh-oh, what'd Chief Lang do?
Good evening, Council, Mr. Mayor. So our safe and secure report. A little earlier today, I was very excited that our positivity rate for COVID was 1%. The mayor has since updated their information and raised it back up to 2, but I think the trend has been extremely positive, and I think most people in here are without a mask at the moment.
You mean extremely negative.
Well, sorry, that's correct. So I'm happy to report that there's some exciting things happening tomorrow. Hopefully everybody's aware that there's a pop-up vaccine event. It's pretty unique because we've done many of them. We've delivered almost 1,800 vaccines to date to 12 years old and up. However, we'll be delivering our first 5 to 11-year-old vaccines to children. And we already have 240 appointments. So we're expecting to hit about a 250 number. We're probably going to process about 400 people through the community center tomorrow. Our average has been about 150 people plus the children. So pretty excited about what's happening tomorrow. That's going to run from 9 a.m. till 6 p.m. The children are by appointment only from 2 p.m. till 5:30. So I have to thank Jessica for all of the outreach she's done in the scheduling, and also Todd and his staff for their continued effort. You have a question?
No, I just wanted, one, to thank you. I was lucky enough, I saw that Jessica posted the announcement, and I got my 11-year-old an appointment like immediately. I knew they would fill up, but I definitely have heard in the community a lot of interest in more appointments for that age group. And I just wanted to make a plug for, please try to bring it back again as soon as you possibly can, because I know there were a lot of people who were disappointed that it filled up very, very quickly. I mean, I saw that the social media post and I made my appointment immediately, but it definitely, there's people who need it.
We're definitely, staff's definitely aware of that. We work very closely with the health department, and the idea that we're going to have what I'm projecting to be pretty big numbers is evidence to them that there's big demand. And I think they've already committed to us to come back on the December 8th. And if there's demand, then we can get more appointments for the 5 to 11-year-olds. We'll plan on doing that.
And I'd like to echo Councilmember McCormick too, that thank you to all the staff, our first responders, for all the stuff that you guys have been doing for us for the last year and a half. I mean, it means a lot, and keeping us safe. Keep up the good work, and I know that you guys will bring this back, and we'll have more kids vaccinated. Thank you so much.
As I've always said,
Councilmember Laredo, go ahead.
Sorry, I just want to, for the record in minutes, that as a lot of us are now rejoining the world and traveling and everything else on business, the Curativa, is that the name of the company?
Curative, yeah.
Has done a great job.
Yes.
They also are now, of course, doing the rapid travel required tests within 2 or 3 hours. They're excellent people. There have been a few little problems that I've gotten complaints from citizens, and the management of the company has called and they corrected it. So I think we need to also congratulate them for because that frees up a lot of the entrepreneurs and they live in our island. They have to travel, and so good work for them, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. That was the latter part of my report, so thank you for addressing the curative. Dr. Roland Samimi, he's been working extremely hard as our staff liaison with curative, and he made arrangements to have the first rapid PCR test in Miami-Dade County and South Florida, if I'm not mistaken. And it started at 3 to 4 hours was the turnaround, and I personally have participated in a number of tests that got back to me within an hour, and we're officially saying it's about a 1 to 2 hour turnaround. So you can go down there and get your PCR test for traveling or whatever, and you fill out the application all online, and it's pretty seamless.
And we were the first to have that down here?
Yes.
The PCR, yeah.
Tony, did you get that?
So
he's bored. He's on Sudoku like Ed.
A lot of firsts on this report.
Against each other.
No, I think it's huge.
A lot of firsts on this report. And the last thing I'll close with is our vaccination rates have been very high. In the 18 plus, we've been over 80%. 82% for 18 plus, 80% for 65, and the 12 to 17-year-olds is I was last reported at almost 72%. So, I think our numbers are going to keep growing. Those numbers change a little bit depending on what the Florida Department of Health has been reporting. The manager and I have spoke a lot about it, and I know he's kept you informed. But I just wanted to get all this on record, and we're excited about the direction we're heading in, and what's happening in the world and in the village. So thank you for allowing us to keep it safe and secure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Howard. All right, next item.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Pleasure to be here. I know you all have had the opportunity to read the introduction of the community policing program, which has been discussed prior to me arriving into the village, and something that we've been working extremely hard on. We do still have a series of meetings coming up on it, but we wanted to put an initial groundwork for you to be able to see what we're envisioning and what we're planning, and what it will do to benefit the residents of Key Biscayne. I think we're starting to see some of those things, but with the plan that we have coming forward, staffing is critical, obviously, because one thing I've learned is that a number of the officers that work in the village wear multiple hats and do multiple things all at the same time in order to ensure the protection of the residents and the young children that go about in the village each day. One of the things that we're obviously looking to do is augment our DARE program, look at crime prevention, conflict resolution, and engaging our youth to make sure that there's more collaborative relationships. And I think that's something that you all have been able to witness in the last couple of weeks. Several of our public safety personnel have been out engaging with young children and residents just to ensure them that, inform them about the necessary steps that they need to take to protect themselves and their children as they're going about their daily businesses. We also want to ensure that we're looking at our CEPTED programs. There is upcoming training for that I've discussed with the manager and our staff. And obviously, it's broken up into 3 segments. The commercial segment is the most important for us because that focuses on the parks throughout the village. And that's something that we're obviously very engaged in right now. And the partnerships that we're going to build with our active seniors on Key Biscayne, the Chamber of Commerce. I've met with them several times since I've arrived here. We're starting our business seminars this week on Thursday, and focusing on security, safety, education, and engagement. So I'll take any questions that you may have on this at this time.
Councilmember McCormick?
Thank you, Chief. This is all very, very exciting, and I think we see the police engaging when you just drive down Crandon Boulevard. I've seen people in the park. But the one thing I wanted to add, twice this week I had a resident come to me with a really scary near miss with kids on motorized scooters. And one, an elderly man who will kill me for calling him that because he's way, way more athletic than most people I know, but he had to go out of the way on his bicycle and he ended up falling. Thank God he was fine. But no, it's Frank Andrews. He knows how to fall.
Oh, yeah.
Was that like,
No, it's not.
No, but he's a former gymnast, so he fell well. But it was scary, and he kind of took one for the girls, so they didn't end up getting hurt. And then another involved girls, it's been all girls this time, but 2 on it, 1 scooter went straight into a car in a crosswalk. And I've had a lot of people also talking about the switch with daylight savings of kids and anyone not having lights on their bikes, but they have the same schedule, right? So they're coming home from the community center at the same time of day, still using their bicycle, but now they're riding in the dark without lights. So it was suggested to me to bring it as a concern, and also to maybe ask for you're doing those great videos, that maybe we could do one about the change of time and encouraging people to have lights. And of course, as always, helmets on the kids. But the motorized scooters seem to have gotten very, very popular. And they're really very dangerous and fast.
Absolutely. The manager and I met on motorized scooters. We've met with Chief Lang and staff. There's a little bit more complexities to the motorized scooters and the way the state statute's written, and we've had that discussion with our attorney. It's something that our staff has noticed this week. I'm sure many of you are aware we kicked off our Key to Street Safety campaign on Monday, and it's something that I've personally observed being out there with Deputy Chief units and some of our officers today. We saw it Monday morning, same situation, two students on a scooter going to school, no helmet, and we stopped them to educate them. It's going to take some time to change the culture, but I think we're moving in the right direction by educating and informing, and then if that message isn't received, we'll move to the next step, which is obviously enforcement. But I really want to do that education and informing piece. A big part of my vision, and when I got selected to come here, is to build relationships with all of our residents and young kids, especially in the village.
Excellent.
Appreciate it. Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
The The thing I've been running into recently is golf carts without lights on at night. We talk about inspecting golf carts to make sure they have lights once, but the fact is that a lot of them run without lights at night, or maybe the lights aren't working, whatever. I would just suggest maybe your officers could tell these people lights are necessary at nights, because it's really dangerous.
No,
I
absolutely.
almost killed 2 of them tonight.
Absolutely, and as part of our Key to Street Safety, we're also starting our education campaign on golf carts on Monday. That was part of it. I personally stopped 2 golf carts at 5 o'clock this afternoon that weren't registered. And that's obviously a concern to us because we want to ensure that we're doing the proper inspections when they're coming in to get registered. But I will make a note of that to our officers so that we can look out for that stuff.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
I do have one more additional thing to add. Just, I don't know if many of you are aware, but we're transitioning the way we report our crimes in this country. Traditionally, it's always been through the UCR, which is the FBI Uniform Crime Report. It's changing to a national incident-based reporting system. I'm not going to bore you with all the minutia, but long story short, it is a more comprehensive way of gathering crime data, and it provides a more in-depth analysis of how crime is captured. There's no longer groupings of crimes. So I don't think there'll be too much of an impact to the village, as there will be to some other municipalities, but I just want to make sure that each of you were aware of that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up. Todd, you're up. Come on down.
Good evening, good evening. Just on a side note to what Eric said, the Iron Man character will be at the children's vaccinations to entertain the kids tomorrow, just to keep their mind off.
I didn't get the
in
Iron
a
Man.
kind of fun way while they're going through that process.
Is that you, Todd?
Yes. No. But we're moving along on Paradise Park. It's kind of 3 phases. There's the Durham regulatory phase, there's the FP&L undergrounding, and then getting the construction up and running, and all 3 are moving along. We had a coordination meeting with Durham last week. We have a soil management plan to review and then to discuss on how best to proceed. And we have a construction coordination meeting this Thursday. We're moving along, and we'll have a groundbreaking on December 10th, and we look forward to seeing you all there.
Nice. Excellent. All right. Thank you.
My pleasure.
December 10th?
December 10th.
And you're invited, Councilmember, Vice Mayor.
All right, next.
So, Mr. Mayor, Renee is not with us tonight. Unfortunately, he's out sick today, but he is doing okay. It's not COVID. That's good news. So I'll just give you a quick update on building recertification. As you recall, last month, we put out notification that as of November 15th, that we would be issuing a $500 fine for those 13 properties over 3 years who had not finished their recertification. We are in the process of doing that. But what's even more important, that starts the 30-day process that if they do not respond by December 15th, we will then refer them to the Unsafe Structure Board, which is the most important thing.
Right.
We feel that, giving them since July, plus that additional 60-day notice, that is plenty of time for them to move forward. Similarly, for those buildings that are under 3 years, but however still past their timeline, we issued their warning they will get fined on December 15th, and then on January 15th, if they do not comply, they'll be passed on to the Unsafe Structure Board.
Has there been any progress with any of these buildings?
Yes, in fact, on November 15th, we got a number of notifications in. I don't have exactly the numbers here, Renee has them, but I believe we got 5 or 6 additional certifications in at that time.
Great.
So it's making people move.
Good.
And I think that's important.
That is important. That's the goal. It's not to penalize people. It's to, no, he was fixing his
It's
camera.
to keep people safe.
It's to keep people safe. So I think that's great. Yeah, no, I agree. Let's go.
And it's, there's 2 reasons. Obviously, we want to make sure we keep people safe. But secondly, the county is going to continue to ramp up their process and make their rules much more specific, so much more detailed.
Great. All right. Thank you. Next item.
Road.
Mayor, Council, in the context of engaging in active public spaces and programs, a little update on some beach enhancement-oriented topics. Vessel exclusion zone is still going along, waiting on Durham. for the Class 1 permit. And we got several cost estimates that were higher than we wanted, but we're waiting on one that they were going to do a revision to sort of bring it more in line with what we think we need. The kite surfing program, working with Todd and the police department, they're intermittently getting people out there on days where we suspect that they'll be kiting. There's some kiting going on now. Todd's working on getting some people out there to get coverage and make sure that people are registering and abiding by the rules. We're also working with the manager, contemplating a one-year pilot with Miami kiteboarding, because getting people on the beach monitoring the kite launch is challenging, to say the least. And so we got an unsolicited proposal from them as to how they might be able to help us. We'll see. We're reviewing that now. And Todd's going to try and get some people out there over the next few days and into the weekend, because it's looking like there's going to be breeze.
Yeah, this week's going to be.
And, you know, there's going to be people out there kiting. As far as seaweed management is concerned, right now the beach is looking in pretty good shape. Month of October, they did a total of 29 trucks. Right now, I believe they're like around 7. So the amount of seaweed that's showing up has really dropped off a lot, as we suspected it would at this time of the year. Todd, I don't know if there's anything that you want to add in terms of people, you know. Yeah, so that's kind of what's going on the beach right now.
Great. Next item.
This is for library?
Yeah. Library.
So you saw the settlement agreement summary in your report, and the manager had another coordination meeting with staff from our group and the library group.
Great.
We communicated to them what the requirements will be for permitting, and all the permits that they're going to need to get here in the village. And so they're taking that into account and finalizing their design, which, when it's done, we can present to you and the community.
Great. That's awesome.
Can we see the design in the process?
They've taken comments and they're revising those.
But comments from who?
They're still working internally. As soon as Ray Baker allows me to do it, I'll share it with you. I mean, there's nothing tricky about it. He just needs to make a few more modifications. I suspect that'll be over the next couple of days.
But where are they in the design process? Just
concept. Still concept.
Like as much as what we kind of saw, it's a lot further along.
I wouldn't say it's a lot further along.
Okay.
It's a little more specific in terms of the interior than what I think we saw before. They've talked a little bit more about the parking lot, which obviously an issue for us because we got to make sure that we have enough space for our building. What you'll see is they actually have dimensions on the inside. They actually have an interior design.
So some of the concerns that we brought up last time they presented it was, you know, how it faced the north, how it faced the park and the water. Are those things being
Key Colony?
Yeah, in Key Colony. I know that in Key Colony also wants to have input in that. I mean, are these things being addressed?
Yes,
the facade and all that. They're looking at all that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and actually, the settlement requires them
to take into account.
Continually coordinate with Key Colony. Key Colony doesn't have the ability to override it, but they have the ability to provide continual input into it.
Which is good.
It's not just Key Colony. I think the point is we'd really like and expect, actually, an opportunity to participate in the aesthetics, exterior and interior.
And I think the positive thing is it is just in the concept phase right now, so we can get in and give some really good feedback too. So.
And the biggest positive is it's moving forward.
Exactly.
Yes. I think also in terms of feedback, even beyond aesthetics, Frank, I think when they're in this process, it would be helpful for them to hear what we envision, what we need, how we think our community would use. I mean, they're going to want to build a building that is going to be used.
Yeah, it's not, that's right, because...
And we are kind of unique in the way that we live out here. You know, we use the same spaces for multiple things, and when you go to the library after school, it's like a tutoring mecca. Like, we have very specific needs that I think that are somewhat unique.
And I think you'll be very pleased with the design of the upstairs, the second floor. I don't know whether I mentioned it or not, but right now I'm working with Ray Baker for the initial community engagement. Right now we're targeting November 30th. He should let me know by either tomorrow or Thursday. I know that's close to Thanksgiving, so we're kind of figuring out whether that makes sense or not. But I will make sure that you all have a copy of that prior to that meeting.
Great.
I thought we suggested, and they agreed, that we can contribute Brett as our advisor or our consultant or to work with them on the design. Have they approached you at all for that?
They have not, and I would love to sit down and just give them some input, some pointers, or even walk the.
Reach out to Ray Baker.
Yeah, let's work together to reach out to Ray and see if we can meet.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, Todd.
My pleasure.
See you in a minute. Oh, no, you're done. Congratulations. We throw in, there's a trick question at the end. Next, let's go. Jake? Traffic and safety. I think we just went over that, but.
Yeah, Crandon Boulevard, the long-term project we discussed earlier tonight, that's the Crandon Boulevard improvements, and then I'll invite Chief Sousa to talk about the short to midterm goals.
Okay.
Good evening again. I think we already covered it.
Yeah, I think we did too, but.
I could reiterate it again if you would
We're
like.
good. I think we know. Just keep at it. Thank you. Next, freebie and smart plan update. And then just stay there. You're next up as well.
Yeah, I'll stay up here for just a little bit. As far as freebie's concerned, right now we're working with freebie to try and conceptualize.
Taking over for the bus route?
Yeah, an express, there's that, and also some kind of express service between the village and the Metro Rail in Biscayne, maybe the village, Metro Rail, People Mover, Brickell. We're trying to work some kind of scope proposal out that we'd want to submit to FDOT for potentially being included in the county's smart demonstration program. And one of the things that I'm working with Jessica on and also Melissa is developing a survey to put out to the community and see what kind of interest there may be for that type of a service. I don't know, Councilmember Kaplan has had some thoughts on this a lot, I think, over the years.
Let me ask you this. The freebie, as I understand it, they're still not allowing more than one person unless they're family members into the vehicles?
Yeah, and that's something that we're looking to revisit and
that's what I was going to ask. Is that that's fine. That was my only real question.
More normal operation now that we've had such high vaccination rates and with all the testing and the vaccination going on.
And they may require people to wear masks in the freebie if there's multiple people, but what have you.
We're also still working on trying to get a couple additional freebies and then use them, like you mentioned, to take over for the bus service that's not going to be going down Harbor anymore.
And when is that? Is that next month? Is that December?
I'm not sure.
The bus?
Oh, no, it's April. It's April. Better
Bus Network program is supposed to pull out of here in June or July.
Oh, is that right?
That's when
okay.
102B goes
Then
away.
we've got time. All right.
We're working with the TPO for the freebies, but Jake and I also met with the Director of Public Works at the county last week, and there's a program called Go Connect. That's an additional type of program that we're also looking at bringing to the village as well.
Roland, you mentioned about going to connect with the Metro Rail, and that is with one of their vehicles?
Excuse me? That would not be a freebie vehicle. It would, like the one that we have in the village, it would be an electric bus type van sort of thing, or what they're using in, I think it's Miami Shores. I know definitely in Pinecrest.
So let's assume
Teslas.
So now we have one person who wants to go to the Metro Rail at, say, Biscayne Station. How much is that going to cost the village?
Well, this is going to be supported by the TPO. We're not looking to do this, in a manner that we're paying for it.
So the county money.
No, but however, Vice Mayor, if the demand's not there, we'll stop the program.
No, excuse me. I'm just saying we now put this service on. Well, sometimes we have two people, sometimes we have one. So we have regular schedule, it's going to be on demand.
We haven't figured that out yet. We're still trying to conceptualize
Here's where I'm coming from. We have bus services, we have Uber, we have taxi cabs. What are we really adding to the mix? Why is it better to even think about doing this than having somebody call an Uber or a taxi cab? Why is the village getting into business which the private can already serve them? Are we now going to all the competing businesses for no reason?
No, I mean, I don't really see it that way. I mean, we're trying to explore ways that we can get people to maybe use alternative transportation and more than just one person in a car at a time. And if there's no interest and there's no demand, then we're not necessarily going to do it. It's just something that we're
Well,
exploring.
if it's on demand, then it could be one person, it could be multiple people. If it's a schedule, assume sometimes it'll be more than one, sometimes it'll be less than one. My question then becomes.
Yeah, that's correct.
We're competing with the buses, we're competing with Uber, we're competing with taxi cabs. For what purpose? I mean, except to waste money.
Again, like I said, if there's no demand for it and there's no interest for it, then
Even
we're
as
not
there
going
is a
to.
demand for it, I'm saying, what causes the demand? That they don't have alternate means now? Do we need another means?
Convenience causes demand.
So convenience causes demand. So basically, picking up your phone to do an Uber is not convenient. It's more convenient to get.
But that's still one car, one rider. That's not
Well, if
mobility.
it's on demand, it's going to be one ride.
This is about changing habits and creating mobility.
No, I think it's worth exploring, certainly. I mean, there may not be, but why not look at
Again,
it?
if it's a service that doesn't really provide a need and doesn't have a purpose, then we're not going to do it.
Before that, is there demand now for the service?
That's what they're going to find out.
That's what they're starting.
That's what
How
we're
do you
trying
study that?
They're doing a survey to
How do
see
you
if
do the
there's an
study?
appetite.
How are you going to do the study?
Not a study, a survey. They're
How do you do
sending
the
out.
survey?
There's one way to
Would
do
you
it by
take it?
analogizing to Coral Gables, which uses that trolley system that's become popular, or the Brickell trolley system that's become popular.
People love those things.
And it links, by the way, with the Biscayne station, so people can commute home to Miami Springs or wherever they happen to live,
Yeah,
which is popular.
We're trying to also figure out whether it would be suitable to our community based on what's working in Pinecrest and other places where they're doing this as well. And so we'll see. It's just an exploratory stage that we're at. And
Doesn't the B bus go straight to the Brickell Metro Rail station?
Not straight to it.
no, I don't know that it doesn't. It stops along the way.
Let's
This
stop
is
some
going
park
to be
if
just.
somebody's there-
This
if
is going to
somebody's there to
basically
get
be
on.
an express just from the village right to the Metro Rail.
So we're going to give them an express instead.
Well, the number one complaint I'm getting these days, other than the motorized scooters, is the insane amount of traffic trying to get back into the village in the morning and in the evening. And if this is something that would possibly alleviate it, I'm all for let's find out if there's an appetite for it. I understand people could take the B bus, but they don't. And I could speculate why Key Biscayne residents aren't getting on the B bus, and they may be more likely to get into a Tesla van. But I'd like to know.
Right.
And if they're going to ride it and take their car off the causeway and alleviate some of the traffic, I think it's worth exploring.
By the way, it's my impression, at least, that whether we are interested in this or not intellectually, County Transit is, and they're going to pursue this.
Yeah, because, they're interested in trying to close that quote-unquote last mile or 2 miles between the main big public transportation line and, like the end destination. And so it's something that they're interested in. And, if it could be suitable to our community, they were encouraging us to scope it out, develop a proposal and see if FDOT was interested in it. And in which case, if there is an interest and there's a demand potential in our community, then it's something that could be considered for this county's smart demonstration program.
I wholeheartedly support it fervently.
And we do, to add to that, we have Eileen Beauchelet from the TPO is going to come present to us in January. Obviously, the focus on our area, but also the entire SMART plan, so you can understand how it connects across the.
Great. All right. Thank you. Next.
The next, in the context of resilience and sustainable environment and infrastructure, an update on the shoreline protection. You'll be happy to know that the Corps did come out with their CSRM feasibility study report, and thankfully we are in it, which is a great thing, because for a while there we were sort of concerned that we wouldn't be in it. The tentatively selected plan for the county includes a reach that is Key Biscayne's beach. The Corps is going to be doing public presentation tomorrow from 1 to 3, 2 sessions, 1 to 3, and then another session 6 to 8 that people can dial into virtually to present the tentatively selected plan that the manager and I have pretty much briefed you all on already. And then there's a public comment period that will last 30 days into the early part of December for people to contribute comments regarding that tentatively selected plan.
That's awesome.
Concept. And then we're going to continue engaging with the Corps and the county, which is the local project sponsor, on how that plan is sort of optimized and made more specific as we move through the process towards designing construction, which is years on down the road.
Beautiful.
Then as far as seawall ordinances are concerned, that's something that we're looking to try and start developing for the village, for the backside. Again, it does relate to some extent with what's going on the ocean side in the sense that it's overall shoreline protection. I've been reaching out to communities such as the City of Miami and the City of Miami Beach and Broward County and Fort Lauderdale as to what they've done with seawall ordinances in those areas. And I've had some conversations with the City of Miami, and they've given us some very specific things to consider as we start formulating our language. And those are included in the manager's update. But it's definitely something that we're looking to try and get in place over the next year.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
As far as roadway improvements are concerned, obviously there's nothing construction-wise going on with roadways, but we're at the stage where we're nearing getting the final survey from KCI, the LiDAR surveying, with all the detailed elevations throughout the village of those roadways, and that's going to tie directly into what AECOM is poised to get started on, which is the second work order for developing the design criteria for the K8 stormwater basin. So it's timely that we are getting those survey datas, and they'll be getting used very, very soon.
Is the LiDAR surveying, is it almost done?
Yeah, we should be getting it by the end of the month.
Complete island should be all done?
Jake,
Okay.
That's island-wide, right?
Excellent.
By the end of the month?
This is the first phase.
First phase?
Oh, that's just first phase, so there's more phases
So then
coming
there'll
in.
be more to come.
Okay, good.
And then as far as the stormwater system portion of this category, we've been briefing the community at a variety of town halls, bringing them up to speed on the findings of the work that was done by AECOM under the first work order, where they were looking at boundary conditions and discharge deficits and opportunities and green infrastructure. We're in the process of putting together a briefing for you all that we're going to be doing in the next few weeks to bring you up to speed on the results of the surveys that we've done, the town halls that we've done, the results from AECOM. They're going to be doing a presentation to you all as well. This is all basically in advance of then having to make a decision on the second work order for the design criteria package development for then being able to move forward with final design and construction for K8 area. It's a big step. So we want to make sure that we take it judiciously and with everyone kind of on the same page.
Roland, can I ask you on that, with that outreach that you've done in the surveying with AECOM, have you been happy with the public participation? Do you feel like people are engaged in hearing about it?
At the first town hall, more so than at the second town hall. I think the second town hall had less because people were just really tired with
it was a big week.
engaging. There was a lot of stuff going on that week, and unfortunately we couldn't sort of get around the scheduling challenges. People did sign on virtually. I've been getting a lot of calls from folks, to ask me questions about it.
And the survey participation has been?
That was actually pretty good. We got something like 170 respondents. And in the end, it was telling in terms of how people felt relative to sea level rise projections that are going to have to be decided on, as well as design storms, as well as infrastructure, green infrastructure, and what they preferred or how they felt about roadway elevating or right-of-way usage, or even in some instances maybe making some roads one way to have more right-of-way to create more storage. So people, people were engaged, and they did provide good feedback, and then that's kind of been integrated into the presentations that we'll be giving to you in advance of then having the discussion on that second work order for the design criteria package for K-8.
And then, sorry, on the same note about participation, the Army Corps outreach, that'll be on Channel 77 as well, right? Or can we make that happen?
I don't think it's going to be on Channel 77, but it will be recorded. So I believe that there'll be a link that people could go to see it in the future. And we have also been giving briefings to the condo associations, and overall, the responsiveness has been very positive. There have been some concerns, relative to how people's views might get, challenged, shall we say, if you're standing on the backside of a larger dune and stuff like that. And also, excuse me, and also the degree to which the dune might encroach on the beach berm. But again, overall, people were very happy that we're getting drawn into this 50-year shoreline protection
and you
program.
feel like that message is out there like that. I feel like every time it comes up in conversation with me, I almost need pom-poms. Like, it is such a massive accomplishment that so many people worked so hard on.
Yeah.
And it really is an absolute game changer for this village in terms of our ability to continue to live here, and additionally to be able to finance it. So
yeah,
I hope that people are understanding the gravity of this being included.
I think they do. All the people that I've spoken to have been very enthusiastic about being involved, as opposed to not being involved. So that's a very positive thing.
Council member, to give you an indication, so whenever we do these things, we did this with Rickenbacker Causeway, where we open up an email that comes in, and we won't talk about the pros and cons on that one. We'll leave that aside. But everyone we've gotten for this one so far, everyone has been yes. No one has said no, which is, it's really nice when you open up an email and everyone says, yes, keep going what you're doing. So it's been very positive feedback.
I guess it's a segue for me. I made a mistake, or I forgot. Brett did all this great work on the zoning, and there was one item I meant to bring up, which of course I forgot, and it ties into what you're talking about. And one of the things I wanted to suggest to Brett was that a bonus in our system of FAR or lot coverage, or whatever you want to use it, and that was to encourage people to build the houses high enough to park the cars inside the house, so that we got the cars off the street. So when you do have to raise the roads, create swells, whatever else you would have to do, we'd have the least resistance. And again, by doing that, the houses go up higher, people are that much safer from flooding. And again, our good old bonus system, I figured maybe you could work something in, come back to us, since I forgot to bring it up before, if everybody is in agreement it's not too late.
No, I think
to
that's a
do
great
that.
idea.
So that, and that would tie together with what you're doing, Roland, with the drainage, with the roads, with everything else. So if everybody's in agreement, I'd like to ask Brett to come back at his convenience with some kind of suggestion.
So my understanding is that by...
We'll have to vote on it.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, bring
fine.
it.
But I just want to understand what you're saying. So right now, the code requires that we park 4 cars on the property, in the property line, not in the swale right now, right? So you're saying that if we could get all 4 cars underneath the house, all 4, not just 2.
Bring under the house. In other words, elevate the house. You have to pave it all the way through the back, front to back, so you can bring at least 2 cars in there.
There's a couple of examples.
Most houses at least 34 feet deep. Okay, and figure 17 feet takes care of most all big cars. I mean, just, you can work it out and just come back with some idea and maybe say it doesn't work, but give some kind of bonus to do that, So now you make sure you have at least an 8-foot ceiling, 7.5 to 8 foot, so people will do it, which then elevates the house a little bit.
Yeah.
So just, it works all over.
Yeah,
Just
we,
come back with something, think
I
about
can
it.
work with
Come back.
Olga, with the manager, with Chad, on that. And I think we have to bring something back anyways from something that you brought up, which was the rear lot elevation. So we have to bring that back anyway, so maybe we can tie that into
Great.
this.
Thank you very much.
Sounds good.
Just the last brief update relative to the utilities hardening category. We did submit a grant proposal to try and get some funding for doing some preliminary design in that respect. And with the manager, we also have a meeting, I believe, this week, Thursday, tomorrow with FPL.
Great.
To also talk about, details of the process for hardening infrastructure.
Awesome.
And so that's kind of something that we're trying to move along as well.
Needless to say, I'm 100% against that. I think it's a total waste of money. After our meeting with Mike, myself, and the manager up in Tallahassee, I really think to see what moves forward before we spend one more penny on undergrounding or hardening. Because we get somebody else to pay for it, like FP&L, why should we spend the dollar?
Seeking grants.
What?
Seeking grants for it is not necessarily spending the money. It's just trying to have the grants available if we aren't able to go down the road that we,
If somebody's going to give us grants, fine. But
Yeah,
not spend
that's what
any
he
of the
just
work
said.
money.
He's exploring grants. That's
I
what he
agree
said.
with you.
Grants is fine.
Okay, well, let's just be clear on it.
No problem with free money.
I know you don't. That's what I'm trying to explain to you. All right.
So that's what I got for you tonight.
Thank you.
So if we could, Vice Mayor, so obviously we're going to find out exactly what FPL believes they can do for us tomorrow, and they have a couple of different programs they're going to lay out for us. And then also, and I think it's the first week of December, Mary Bailey and I are actually going to go back up and meet again with the PSC to go through some of the details, go in much more depth with some of the action officers to
But
better
what's the
understand
emergency
their rules.
management thing?
No, that's
We're following up with that as well.
That's the mitigation. Yeah.
We had a conversation with FEMA 2 weeks ago, not this past week, 2 weeks ago.
Good.
And so they're working through that concept plan of how they take a coastal village.
Good.
And Steve, I think that one other thing that we should be, I think that's important for us to know is about the hardening timeline, right? Because we've always known this hardening timeline. Are they going to extend that for us while we work on certain grants or whatever avenue that we're going, or is this coming no matter what? So I think that we need to clarify that as well.
Yeah, we'll find that out tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, we should get all the programs they offer tomorrow. They should be laying that out for us. I think
Excellent.
there are about 3 or 4 different programs that they offer.
Great.
Jake, you're up. Thank you, Roland.
Roland's a good man.
Septic sewer connection, since last reporting, we got 2 residences connected. We still have 26 residences that are still on septic and in violation. So working with the county to expedite enforcement and finding.
Okay,
those
26
properties.
left?
26.
Not bad.
What's
Keep
the county,
going.
what's the county doing about it? Anything?
Currently, they're sending this uniform civil violation notice, but there's no fine attached to it. It's just,
So nothing.
yeah, correct.
It's hard to get the environmentalists to find, but we're working on it. We'll get it. Probably that last person will get fined by the end, Vice Mayor. But, someone will be fined by,
I didn't say
by the
that,
time
just
we
says
get
what
it
they're
done.
doing.
Keep
That's all.
pushing. All right, CIP?
CIP. I'll give you a quick highlight. So we got a total of 28 projects in this year's CIP. Out of 28, 15 in planning, 3 in design, 6 in procurement, 2 in permitting, and 2 in construction. Todd is moving forward with the permitting of Paradise Park, remediation construction. That's about 90% complete, and hopefully we'll be on construction soon. Lake Park gazebo improvements about 26% complete. And beach access, public access design, that design's been done in-house. We also applied for the grant, so depending upon the outcome of the grant, we may do the construction ourselves, or may for grant. If we get it, they may pay for it.
Great.
Beach Park improvements. A few weeks ago, we had the first community engagement meeting, and there was about 8 to 10 people that we got good feedback from the community on what they want to see in the beach park. The second engagement meeting will be on December 2nd, 2 weeks from this Thursday, at Beach Park. It will be at the beach park. And
This next Thursday, I'm sorry.
2 weeks from this
2 weeks
Thursday,
from
December
this
2nd.
Got it.
And after that meeting, we're going to formalize and document all the ideas and provide concept plans and hopefully it will be before the council sometime in January or February for a decision.
Awesome.
Besides that, I've got a number of other things in planning and procurement, and I'll take any questions on specific projects if you have.
Did your horticulture start?
Yesterday, yes, sir.
And what's happening with your contractor?
With the landscape contractor.
Yeah.
So we met with them. I met with them about a month and a half ago. So there's some corrective actions that was taken. They did remediate some of the issues that they had.
They keep screwing things up, though.
They are, and the horticulturist met with them this morning, and then. But it's in progress. We were trying to get better, but we got other.
I'm just telling you, I'm getting comments from people who don't comment on landscaping about the landscaping, and they're commenting that it's deteriorating. And I mean, that's the comment they're getting. They're giving me. Yeah, and I think we have to get hard on these guys. If they're not up to snuff, they're not up to snuff. Thanks very much. Next, let's go.
And they're aware, and I told them the next time they get a quote from us, it's not going to be pretty.
No, well, it shouldn't be pretty now.
Right.
All right, we got to be holding their feet to the fire on this because I don't want to get hassled about the landscaping in the village. I just don't. I'm tired of the.
I live with somebody.
I know.
Yeah. Oh God, I can't imagine what his life's like. So let's get on them, and or thanks for playing next.
Yeah.
Good.
What is their specific problem? They work hard. I mean, they're out there.
They did.
Yeah, but they do stupid things. They cut, we do the new planting and then they cut the plants, then they cut the palms right on top of the new plantings. I mean, they just, I'm not a gardener, but there's certain basic things not to do. You have new plants you've just planted, you don't crush them with palm fronds. It seems pretty basic to me, but.
There are a number of issues that was there. Number one, the entire industry suffered from the labor shortage, so. And I understood that they couldn't find good people to work for them, but there are things that was unacceptable. But
all right,
we'll get through it.
Please. Next item, steer right.
Yes, last item, Mr. Mayor. During the last meeting, Councilmember Laredo asked us to kind of give an idea what steer right meant and why we were restructuring the manager's report. So what we did is we shared the last item in the manager's report. Gives you an outline of what the vision is, what the mission is, and what our goals and objectives are. So we will continue to communicate in that acronym. Of course, there has to be an acronym to do it.
You love acronyms.
I love acronyms.
You can't exist without acronyms.
Keeps us going, keeps us focused. So this will be our focus for the year. And just to let you know what we are doing, with each one of these goals, we are also identifying action items. And what we do is we meet on a monthly basis to make sure that we are tracking them. We know when they're due. And we'll obviously, when it's necessary, we'll keep you up to date in the manager report.
Thank you.
Mr. Manager?
Yes, sir.
I think the weekly reports that you used to put out late Friday or early Saturday, you're going to continue that practice because that's very helpful.
I will, and I apologize. I've been
not to get too involved in micromanaging, and also to respond to citizens' concerns as they run into us on the streets and stuff.
No, and I know I
report. I haven't seen it in 2 weeks. I guess maybe I just.
No, and I know I've been slack on that, and I'll make sure I get you on this week.
I know it's okay. I recommend that you continue that practice if you can with your time limit. It helps a lot.
No, and I like that opportunity. It gives us a chance to continue to communicate throughout the week.
Agreed. All right, next item.
The next item, Mayor and Council members, Rickenbacker RFP, Councilmember Segurola.
Councilmember?
I make a motion that the village retain counsel to investigate every possible avenue to sue Miami-Dade County to stop the Rickenbacker RFP.
Is there a second?
Say that again.
I recommend the village retain counsel to investigate every opportunity that the village has to sue Miami-Dade County to stop the Rickenbacker RFP.
And what is the grounds for
the grounds is that I believe, and I'm not an expert on this, that's why I want to retain counsel and get advice, but I believe Miami-Dade County may have potentially violated their own RFP ordinances, state laws, federal laws, And I'd like to know what they knew and when they knew it, because this process, I find it very suspect from the inception.
Can't we use our own counsel to do that?
Is there a second for the motion?
I think Brett asked a fundamental question. None of us like this process. No, I don't know of any predicate for publicly introducing the vocabulary of litigation. But if we wanted to direct an inquiry into whether that existed, then I would support that.
Well, my understanding is Weiss Serota has conflicts with the county. That's why I brought it up about retaining counsel. If I'm mistaken, you tell me.
Yeah, we have no conflict.
Okay, it's with the city then.
Yes.
City parking, right?
Then my mistake, I take it back. Then
And I'm happy to meet with you and walk through, you know, a laundry list of theories that, you know, the manager and I have spoken about. And I'm happy to explore that with you.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, I've had meetings with you, and I know you're already exploring it since it started. So, I think that'd be more cost effective.
That's fine. My mistake. I thought you had conflicts with the county, but if you don't, perfect.
So reach out, talk to him, and explore. I mean, we've all been, just so you know, we're all talking about this, and again, let's keep moving forward. The value for money study is supposed to be out soon. I keep reaching out to the mayor. I know it's in ISD now.
It's in ISD right now.
It's in ISD right now. So when they get that, they'll have that. We're having conversations with the mayor. We're allowing them. We're giving them the lead. They know where we are. We want it rescinded. We want to go back to start. They're exploring. They're listening. So right now, I'm amenable to allowing them this time. But again, I think you have every right, contact the attorney and have those discussions.
Unfortunately, I just don't have that much faith in the current process, and the clock is ticking. March is right around the corner before we know it, and I just think it's going to keep going the way it's been going. So we have to get ready to prepare to protect our interests, period.
I don't disagree with you on that.
I think everybody agrees with that.
Okay.
I've been informed, maybe rightfully or wrongfully, that the people on the commission, the mayor, are going to propose changes to the RFP. To the best of my knowledge, once they propose changes, and if they accept those changes, basically it nullifies the RFP. So at that point in time, I guess we could have a legal case against the thing. Let them do what they're going to do.
The issue also is that if the changes aren't made, or if the changes are minimal, and the deadline remains what it is, no one else is going to bid on this because.
Well, no one's going to bid anyway.
Well, no, you have one proposal, and they're going to get it.
Yeah, of course.
And it's a rigged system, in my opinion.
I just think we shouldn't get too much into strategy on attorneys and law and all that kind of stuff of what we might do and
I
not.
recommend
So I
that
think
we're reach out to the attorney and have that conversation.
And we'll see what happens. Yeah.
Okay.
Is the motion withdrawn?
Yes, withdrawn since I can speak to our attorney.
Thank you.
Yeah, just let me know. We've looked at a lot of different things so far, but just give me a call or I'll call you, just tell me when, and we'll go through it.
Okay.
Councilmember Laredo?
Rickenbacker, brightest I can. I wonder if the chief of police is still with us.
He hasn't quit yet.
City of Miami elections took place, and now we know the commission for the next 2 years at least. And I don't believe we know, correct me, Mr. Manager, if we have a new police chief, City of Miami or interim. But this is the right time, and the immediate concerns of our citizens is the traffic speeding on the Rickenbacker, and Metro Day has done an extraordinary job of helping us. We have a little bit of a gap on enforcement in the City of Miami, particularly on the other side of the big bridge. So I would urge the manager and/or the police chief to reach out now that the players are all in place to see if we can get them in a nice way coordinating with Metro Day so that we can get a safer Rickenbacker and enforcing the speeders that we have in there.
Councilmember, I actually met with the director of entertainment of the city of Miami earlier this week to talk about that exactly. The Chief Souza and I will also reach out to the interim chief, Manny Morales, and see exactly where they are and try to reinvigorate that relationship.
Great, thank you. Great.
Next item?
Next item is the golf cart ordinance update. Councilmember Segarola.
I guess this brings us back to Chad. You were gonna.
Sure.
Reaching out to the county about striping up Crandon Boulevard.
I did. We've had some preliminary conversations with the county. The staff and I have met also. We don't have a real answer yet as the county right of way. As far as municipal right of ways, we think we can do something on our own. As far as county, I think that we need a little more time for us to kind of present something to them. Speaking in the abstract is not really working. So I think give us a little more time to come back and actually sit with them, which show them visually what we're talking about.
For the December meeting, you think that'll be enough?
With the holiday, I don't know. That was part of the issue too, is, we had the holiday last week, which people take off, unfortunately. So I know that we're meeting internally on, I think, December 2nd. So hopefully we should be able to have something. If you want, we can have an interim communication. I can let you know then too.
Okay.
But a lot of it's not legal at this point. A lot of it is engineering wise. So.
In what sense? What do you mean? I thought it was illegal in terms of permission to be able to mark up the road. Is there another part?
The county engineering department controls. The county attorneys will follow them, but at the end of the day, it's a county right-of-way, so it's going to be really up to the county engineering department if they're going to allow us to do it.
The decision's by the engineers, not by the lawyers.
Yeah, ultimately. I mean, the lawyers are not going to get into the way of it, and I think we need to just sit down with them and show them visually, like I said.
And how about what we discussed during the workshop about, I think it was investigating additional entry points on the side of Fernwood into the shopping centers? Any investigations into that?
We did do that. Jake, you want to jump up real quick?
Isn't that in part of the, I thought I read that
It
also.
is, but we did do a recon last week.
Just a quick, so we know.
Sorry,
Okay.
recon on what? I missed it for, I was looking at it.
On the curb cuts.
Oh, right.
Additional curb cuts.
Yeah, we did the field review of all the existing access points to the shopping centers in Fernwood. There are some improvements that we can make now to make it more friendly and user-friendly. Just by as simple as adjusting curbing and landscaping around them and make them more accessible. And there are some that they'll be looking at. There's some design needs to be done to provide access to shopping centers, and they also have to secure buy-in from the shopping center owners themselves. So there's some work to be done, but this is also incorporated into the work order that was approved earlier as part of Crandon Boulevard. So we're going to charge BCC Engineering to help us.
So that will include the curb cuts on the Fernwood side?
Fernwood, yes, they'll be on Fernwood.
And also, if there's a potential between plazas as well, shopping centers as well.
Okay. And is there, at what point do you require like an outreach to the plaza owners or administrators to move forward? Or do you need to, I assume?
We do, because they're private property, and then some of them on high elevation. For example, I forgot which one it was, but
The arcade.
Yeah, it's up high.
Right, it's about 10-foot difference, so you're gonna have to provide a big, long ramp to provide access.
Yeah, I don't know how you do that.
Yeah.
Could be fun.
I mean, it is possible.
Good, motorized scooters and that ramp,
it's
that's gonna
possible,
go
but
well.
You're going to cut in and you'll
And
lose
they're
some
gonna lose
parking spots,
space,
which
exactly.
they already
So-
don't have
So
enough
what
of.
gives? So we'll have to negotiate with them. So they need to be 100%, involved.
Okay, so then to be done is still communicate with the county and anything on your end? Well, it's already part of the RFP.
Correct. Yeah, the Fernwood side of it is internal. The county is not going to get involved. But as far as the striping and Crandon, it's all about county. We'll have to do.
And to be honest, as council member, I mean, one of the things we're asking them for, not just for the curb cuts, we're also looking for traffic control of golf carts on Crandon. So tying those potential things that we talked about during the workshop, whether it's signage, whether it's marking lines, that's also something they're going to look at as well.
That part all has to do with the county, though, so we got to wait on
It
there.
does. We'd have to present something to the county, then the county would have to permit it.
And if the county gives their okay, the engineers, what do you foresee the next step? Another workshop maybe, or talking to the shopping center owners, and then coordinating everything in one, or actually no, it would have to be studying the street, Crandon, for the flows to see where the required golf cart access will have to be.
And that's what the BCC will be doing. Right. Okay. So they'll be looking at all the access points, the traffic flow, where it cannot go, what makes sense. Some cases it doesn't really provide that much value, but sometimes it just provides convenience. Other times it does actually alleviate traffic on Crandon.
And they'll also look at it specifically from the point of view of the golf carts on Crandon.
Yes, that's part of the scope of work.
Yeah. Okay.
Perfect.
Okay. Thank you.
Next item.
Next item is election.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Councilmember Laredo.
Yeah, I think I wanted to share with you and the council member that I think yesterday was probably one of the most significant days for municipal government moving forward. The president finally signed the infrastructure bill. And also, luckily, he appointed a long-term and active mayor of New Orleans, Landborough, as the czar of this $1 billion plus. So we have a sensitivity there from the municipal point. So I would consider, for your consideration, a sort of a policy discussion to instruct the manager that we really need to go on a full court press on this money that is going to be, as I've said in several other occasions, going to be spent very fast, appropriated very fast. And I know we have a lobbyist in Washington, but he or she or that firm has also an awful lot of other clients. So this is an opportunity to look at the Haircut Bridge, look at undergrounding, some of the mitigating factors of climate change, which also is a Glasgow agreement that was signed yesterday. So this is a really important time. It was a significant day for us, and I would just think I know he's sensitive to it, the manager, but this is a time to put in the full court press to grab this money that can alleviate a lot of our problems fiscally and infrastructure-wise.
Agreed.
We're tailor-made for a lot of them. And so just don't know how we instruct the manager, but if you have the same sense, we should tell us how a policy that this should be.
I think he knows. He's been working on it. That's what he's done since, his boots have not stopped moving since he hit the ground. So I mean, he's doing it.
We don't need to give him an acronym.
Yeah, no, consensus of council is, yeah, we don't need exactly. We don't need any more stinking acronyms.
Well, the money is there as of yesterday.
Right. No, and we've heard from.
Happens to have been a mayor, so I'm just telling you, knowing how Washington works, that we need to get on it, because if you blink on this one, it's gone.
Well, we're already working with our folks up in Washington, and we're ready to go. Let's get it moving.
Okay.
Next item.
Next item is election of vice mayor pursuant to section 2.02B of the village charter.
I have a motion.
Go ahead.
I propose Councilmember Moss to fulfill this role with gratitude and a measure of admiration for Vice Mayor London's prior service.
Wait, that was the vice mayor? Oh, I screwed up.
Ed had the responsibility several times of taking the gavel, and I think did a good job.
Did a heck of a job when he was in the room.
Yeah. But I propose Brett.
All right. Discussion?
Is there a second?
The
Yes,
councilman.
I certainly am not surprised, but I am deeply disappointed.
I didn't want the job again.
This council, out of 7, there are 2 Hispanics in the city that has about 52% of the voters and close to 60% of the population Hispanic. as per our charter, the mayor's role is very minimal. So the vice mayor's role is just minimal.
Excuse me.
But it is a significant gesture of prestige and recognition, etc. There, which I'm going to make a motion to appoint Councilman Segola, because I thought the mayor would have seen that as a gesture of unity. It's a gesture, I believe, Moss has already been vice mayor. Of the 4 people who were elected 4 years ago, everybody served except the 2 Hispanics. And it's a terrible
discrimination
thing, what you're doing. Minor but very significant in sense you reconfirm all my worst fears and a lot of people's fears. But here was an opportunity to reach out, people who you may not necessarily agree with on issues, but that represents a certain segment of the community. But it just reaffirms what some people affirm about, we're on the outside and there's an inside equation, of course. There is the tyranny of the majority. So showing my disappointment, and I'm deeply disappointed in some of you who I thought I knew well. But I would like to move also Vice Mayor to be Ignacio Pedro.
Actually, Councilmember Laredo, I greatly appreciate the gesture, and I'm very flattered, but I'll decline at this time. Thank you.
So I nominated Luis.
And why is that?
I'll keep that to myself. Thanks.
I'll nominate Luis to be vice mayor.
Okay, folks.
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor.
I nominated you, Luis.
We already have a motion on the floor for Brett Moss. It's been seconded. Let's have a roll call, please.
I nominated for Luis also.
Well, okay.
So I nominate Luis for vice mayor also.
Okay. Well, I think we have to vote on one or the other. So.
Oh, you can't have more than one candidate?
You can have more. Well, if one fails, yeah, fine. You want to have a vote on who you're going to vote for? Fine.
I mean,
go. Do it.
You had, so
procedurally.
There's a seconded motion.
Okay, so.
Don't you deal with that before you deal with a?
Deal with the first motion.
Brett first. Okay.
You have to deal with the first motion and then move to the second.
All right, fine. I'll withdraw my motion for Luis till we vote on Brett.
Okay.
You just withdrew
Roll
your
call,
motion?
please.
Okay. This is for Councilmember Moss.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember McCormick.
Yes.
Councilmember Moss.
Yes.
Councilmember Segurola.
No.
Mayor Davey.
Yes.
Councilmember Kaplan.
Yes.
Councilmember Laredo.
No.
Vice Mayor London.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion to adjourn.
One.
We're adjourned.